I should have known something was wrong 3 months earlier when Richard started asking about property boundaries. But you don't expect the man your daughter loves to be counting acres like a prospector counting gold. You don't expect the smooth-talking accountant with the perfect smile to be planning a theft instead of a marriage. The morning of the wedding, I woke up with a feeling in my gut that I couldn't name. Not quite dread, not quite worry. Just this persistent whisper that something wasn't sitting right. I'd felt it growing stronger over the past few weeks, watching Amber go through wedding preparations with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. But I told myself it was normal. Cold feet. Nerves. Every bride feels uncertain, right? I was wrong about so many things. The ceremony was set for 3 o'clock at the Riverside Gardens, a beautiful venue with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. Amber had chosen it a year ago, back when her laugh still sounded genuine and her eyes still sparkled when she talked about Richard. Back before I started noticing how she always checked her phone anxiously, how she'd flinch slightly when he touched her shoulder, how she'd stopped mentioning her friends. I arrived at noon to help her get ready. The bridal suite was all white and gold, filled with flowers and champagne. Amber's bridesmaids fluttered around like butterflies in their blue dresses, but Amber herself sat still as stone in front of the mirror while the makeup artist worked on her face. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," I said, squeezing her shoulder. She met my eyes in the mirror. For just a second I saw something there. A flash of pure panic. Then it was gone, buried under another practiced smile. "Thanks, Mum." Her voice was quiet, almost hollow. "Are you feeling okay? We can take a minute if you need to talk." "I'm fine. Just nervous." She looked away, down at her hands twisted in her lap. The makeup artist excused herself to get more supplies. The bridesmaids had wandered out to the balcony to take photos. We were alone. "Amber," I started, but she cut me off. "I should finish getting ready. Richard doesn't like when things run late." That sentence hung in the air between us. Richard doesn't like. Not we prefer, not I want. Richard doesn't like. How many times had I heard variations of that phrase over the past 6 months? Richard doesn't like when I stay out late. Richard thinks I should wear my hair down. Richard says I need to be more careful with money. I should have said something then. Should have pulled her into my arms and told her we could walk away from all of it. The flowers, the cake, the 200 guests waiting downstairs. None of it mattered more than her happiness. But I didn't. Because I was a coward who told herself she was being paranoid. Because I thought maybe I was the one with the problem, being overprotective of my only child. The ceremony began right on time. I sat in the front row, wearing a burgundy dress that Amber had helped me pick out months ago. My sister Patricia sat beside me, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue even though nothing sad had happened yet. The music started, and the wedding party began their procession down the aisle. Amber appeared at the back of the room on the arm of her Uncle James, since her father had passed away 8 years earlier. She looked stunning in her white gown, her dark hair swept up in an elegant style, her brown skin glowing against the ivory fabric. But her hand gripped the bouquet so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. I watched her walk down that aisle, and with every step that feeling in my gut grew stronger. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. She reached the altar where Richard stood waiting in his black tuxedo, his blonde hair slicked back, his smile confident and broad. He was handsome in a conventional way, the kind of good-looking that came from good genes and expensive grooming. The kind of handsome that made people trust him too easily. The officiant began speaking. Standard wedding words about love and commitment until death do us part. I barely heard them. I was watching Amber's face, seeing the slight tremor in her lips, the way her eyes kept darting to the exit. "We are gathered here today," the officiant droned on, "to witness the union of Richard Christopher Bennett and Amber Nicole Walker in holy matrimony." Richard reached for Amber's hand. She gave it to him and I saw her wince. Just slightly, just for a second. Like his grip was too tight. The officiant continued through the standard ceremony, talking about the sanctity of marriage, the importance of the vows they were about to take. I kept my eyes on my daughter, watching her chest rise and fall with quick, shallow breaths. She looked like she might faint. "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage," the officiant said, "speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence that followed felt heavy, oppressive. I opened my mouth, almost said something. Almost. Then Amber moved. She shifted slightly, adjusting her bouquet of white roses and blue hydrangeas. Her hand slipped between the flowers, and when it emerged she was holding a small piece of paper, folded tight. She turned toward me. Our eyes met. Hers were filled with tears and terror. She took 2 steps away from Richard, leaving him standing confused at the altar. She walked to me, her wedding dress rustling, and pressed the paper into my hand. Her fingers were ice cold and shaking. I unfolded the note. 3 words in her handwriting, the letters slightly smudged like she'd written them while crying. Mum, help me. Time seemed to stop. The room went silent except for the pounding of my heart. I looked up at Amber, then at Richard, who was staring at us with an expression morphing from confusion to anger. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Excuse me, I said, my voice somehow steady even though my hands were trembling. I need to speak with my daughter privately. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Richard stepped forward, his jaw tight. This is inappropriate, he said. We're in the middle of a ceremony. I don't care. I reached for Amber's hand. Come with me, sweetheart. She stays here. Richard's voice had gone hard, all pretense of the charming groom vanishing. We're finishing this. No. The word came out stronger than I expected. I looked at the officiant. We need a moment. Please. The officiant glanced between us, clearly unsure of protocol for this situation. Richard took another step forward, reaching for Amber's arm. Don't touch her. I moved between them, surprising myself with my own fierceness. Mrs. Walker, this is ridiculous. Your daughter is just having cold feet. Every bride gets nervous. She asked for my help. We're leaving. I took Amber's hand and started walking toward the side door that led to the hallway. She came with me, moving like a sleepwalker, her dress trailing behind us. Amber. Richard's voice was sharp now, commanding. Get back here. Now. She flinched but kept walking. We reached the door and I pushed it open. The hallway beyond was blessedly empty and quiet. I pulled Amber through and let the door close behind us, muffling the shocked voices of 200 guests. Amber collapsed against the wall, her bouquet falling to the floor. She was shaking all over, tears streaming down her face, ruining the careful makeup. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Mum. I couldn't go through with it. I really tried, but I couldn't. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight while she cried. Sure, baby. It's okay. You're okay now. I've got you. You don't understand. He's going to be so angry. He's going to. The door burst open. Richard stood there, his face red, his eyes blazing. Behind him, I could see guests craning their necks to see what was happening. This stops now, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Amber, you're coming back in there. We're finishing this ceremony. No, she's not, I said, keeping my body between them. Do you have any idea how much this wedding cost? How many people are in there? You're both making fools of yourselves. I don't care about the money or the people. My daughter asked for help. That's all that matters. Your daughter is being irrational. She's having a panic attack or something. She needs to calm down and remember what's important here. What's important is that she doesn't want to marry you. His expression twisted into something ugly. She doesn't know what she wants. She's been confused lately, emotional. That's why she needs someone stable, someone who can take care of her and handle things. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Handle things. Like Amber was a problem to be managed rather than a person to be loved. We're leaving, I said firmly. The hell you are. We're getting married today. I've put too much time and effort into this to walk away now. Too much time and effort. Not love. Not heartbreak. Time and effort like she was a business investment. Is there a problem here? Patricia appeared behind Richard, along with Uncle James. My sister's eyes were sharp, taking in the scene immediately. Everything's fine, Richard said, but his smile was strained. Just a small misunderstanding. Amber's feeling overwhelmed. Amber's feeling trapped, I corrected. And we're leaving. Now. Patricia nodded once, understanding without needing explanation. She and James positioned themselves between Richard and us, creating a barrier. You're making a huge mistake, Richard hissed at Amber. You'll regret this. I promise you'll regret this. I didn't respond to the threat. I just took Amber's hand again and started walking down the hallway toward the back exit. Patricia and James followed, shielding us from Richard's angry stare. We made it outside into the parking lot. The afternoon sun was bright, almost blinding after the dimness of the hallway. Amber was still crying, her whole body shaking. Get her in the car, Patricia said, digging keys from her purse. I'll drive. You sit with her. I helped Amber into the back seat, climbing in beside her. She curled against me like she used to do as a little girl after a nightmare, making herself small and seeking comfort. Patricia got behind the wheel and James took the passenger seat. We pulled out of the parking lot just as other guests started emerging from the venue, looking confused and concerned. Where are we going? Patricia asked. Home, I said. To the ranch. We're going home. The drive took 40 minutes. Amber cried for the first 20, then fell into an exhausted silence, her head resting on my shoulder. I stroked her hair and tried to process what had just happened. My daughter had been standing at the altar, seconds away from marrying a man who scared her. If she hadn't found the courage to pass me that note, she would be his wife right now. The thought made me feel sick. What had I missed? What signs had I been too blind to see? We pulled up to the ranch as the sun was starting to sink lower in the sky. The familiar sight of the sprawling property, the main house with its wraparound porch, the barn and stables in the distance, the endless acres of pasture and woodland, all of it looked like sanctuary. I helped Amber out of the car. She moved slowly like every step hurt. Let's get you inside, I said gently. Out of that dress and into something comfortable. Patricia unlocked the front door and we went into the house I'd lived in for 30 years, the house where Amber had grown up. Everything here was familiar, safe. I took Amber upstairs to her old bedroom, the one she'd moved out of 5 years ago when she'd gotten her own apartment. It still had her swimming trophies on the shelves, posters of her favorite singers on the walls, the blue comforter she'd picked out when she was 16. She stood in the middle of the room looking lost. Let me help you with the dress, I said. She nodded mutely. I unzipped the back and helped her step out of the elaborate gown, leaving it in a puddle of white silk on the floor. She pulled on sweatpants and an old t-shirt from her dresser, then sat on the edge of the bed. I know you have questions, she said quietly. I do. But they can wait until you're ready to talk. For now, just rest. I need to tell you. You need to understand why I did that, why I waited until the last possible second. I sat beside her, taking her hand. Okay. I'm listening. She took a shaky breath. Richard isn't who I thought he was. He isn't who any of us thought he was. What do you mean? He's been lying. About everything. About his job, about his intentions, about why he wanted to marry me. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. He never loved me, Mom. He loved the ranch. He loved what he thought he could get from us. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? He's been pressuring me for months to talk about the property. Asking questions about the deed, about how much it's worth, about whether you'd ever consider selling. I thought he was just curious, just interested in my family's history. But then I found papers. What kind of papers? Documents about the ranch. Property surveys, land valuations, contact information for developers. He had meetings scheduled with real estate companies. And there were notes, plans for how he could gain legal access to the land after we were married. My blood ran cold. He was planning to take the ranch. Or sell it. Or develop it. I don't know exactly what he wanted to do, but I know he didn't care about me. I was just the key to get what he really wanted. Her voice broke. I was so stupid. I didn't see it until it was almost too late. You're not stupid. He's a con artist. He manipulated you. He controlled everything. My phone, my friends, where I went, who I talked to. It happened so gradually I didn't notice until I felt like I was suffocating. And today, standing there at the altar, I realized if I said yes, I'd never be free. He'd own me. He'd own everything. I pulled her close, letting her cry against my shoulder again. Rage was building in my chest, hot and fierce. This man had spent over a year worming his way into my daughter's life, isolating her, manipulating her, all for a piece of land. He's not getting away with this, I said. We're going to fight back. We're going to make sure he never hurts anyone else like this. How? It's his word against mine about the papers. I didn't take copies. I panicked and put them back where I found them. Then we'll find another way. We'll document everything, get lawyers involved, make sure he can't come near you again. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. He said I'd regret it. The way he looked at me, Mom. He meant it. He's going to try something. Let him try. He's going to find out what happens when he messes with this family. Patricia knocked softly on the doorframe. I made tea. Thought you both might need some. She came in carrying a tray with 3 cups and sat in the chair by the window. We all drank in silence for a moment. So what's the plan? Patricia finally asked. First thing Monday morning we call our lawyer, I said. Gerald needs to know everything. We'll file for restraining orders, document all of Richard's behavior, and see if we can find evidence of his schemes. I have his laptop password, Amber said suddenly. He made me memorize it in case of emergencies. Said he had important financial documents I might need. Maybe that's where the real evidence is. That could be considered illegal access, Patricia pointed out. But if he forged documents or has evidence of fraud, that changes things, I said. We need to talk to Gerald first, see what our options are legally. Amber nodded, looking more alert now, less like a victim and more like someone ready to fight. There's something else. About a month ago, I ran into his ex-girlfriend. She tried to warn me about him, said he'd done something similar to her, but I didn't believe her. I thought she was just jealous. I need to find her, get her to tell us what happened. Do you remember her name? Nicole. Nicole something. She works at the art gallery downtown. We'll find her, Patricia said. We'll get every piece of evidence we can and bury this guy. My phone started buzzing in my purse downstairs. Then Patricia's phone started ringing. Amber's phone, still in the bridal suite back at the venue, was probably exploding with messages. I should check that, Patricia said, looking at her phone. Probably people wanting to know what happened. She stepped out into the hallway to take a call. I could hear her voice, calm and firm, explaining that there was a family emergency and the wedding had been postponed indefinitely. What do I tell people? Amber asked. Everyone's going to want to know why I ran out on my own wedding. You tell them the truth. That you realized you were making a mistake and you had the courage to stop it before it was too late. Anyone who judges you for that isn't worth your time. People are going to talk. They're going to say terrible things. Let them talk. You did the right thing, the brave thing. You saved yourself from a nightmare. She leaned against me again, exhausted. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for not making me go back in there. Always, baby. I will always stand up for you. That's what mothers do. We sat there as the sun continued to set outside the window, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The ranch stretched out before us, peaceful and unchanging. 300 acres of land that had been in my family for 4 generations. Land that Richard had tried to steal through lies and manipulation. He picked the wrong family to mess with. Patricia came back into the room, her face grim. That was Gerald. I gave him a quick summary of the situation. He wants us to come to his office first thing Monday morning, but he gave me some preliminary advice. We need to document everything starting now. Every interaction with Richard, every threat, every message. And Amber, he wants you to write down a detailed timeline of the relationship, especially anything that felt controlling or manipulative. Amber nodded. I can do that. Also, he strongly advises not going back to your apartment alone. Is there anything there you absolutely need right now? My laptop. Some clothes. My documents. Amber's face fell. Everything I own is there. We'll get it back, but not today. Gerald thinks Richard might be there, and the last thing we need is a confrontation without legal protection in place. My phone started ringing. I pulled it out and saw Richard's name on the screen. My finger hovered over the decline button, but Patricia shook her head. Answer it. Put it on speaker. We should document this. I accepted the call and switched to speaker mode. Hello. Mrs. Walker. Richard's voice was controlled now, the anger from earlier replaced with something smoother but no less dangerous. I think we need to talk about what happened today. I don't think we have anything to discuss. Your daughter left me standing at the altar in front of 200 people. She humiliated me and my family. The least you can do is explain what's going on. Amber doesn't want to marry you. That's all the explanation you need. That's not acceptable. She made a commitment. We have a legal contract. A marriage license isn't a contract until the ceremony is completed. There's no legal obligation here. There are financial obligations. My family paid for half that wedding. You're looking at $60,000 in expenses. Send us an itemized bill. We'll review it with our lawyer. Pause. Then, is that how you want to play this? Lawyers and bills and fights. You're the one who mentioned money. Amber simply chose not to get married. That's her right. Put her on the phone. I want to talk to my fiancée. She's not your fiancée anymore. She doesn't want to talk to you. This is ridiculous. She's clearly having some kind of breakdown. She needs help, not you enabling whatever delusional panic she's experiencing. The gaslighting attempt was so blatant it made me angry. My daughter is perfectly rational. She made a clear-headed decision to not marry someone who doesn't respect her. Doesn't respect her? I've given her everything. I've taken care of her, protected her, tried to build a life with her. And this is how she repays me. You controlled her. There's a difference. His laugh was cold. Is that what she told you? That I controlled her? What else did she say? That I hurt her? That I threatened her? Let me guess, she's suddenly remembering all sorts of terrible things I supposedly did. I'm ending this call. Don't contact Amber again. Don't come to this property. If you need to communicate about financial matters, do it through lawyers. You're making a mistake. Both of you. I tried to be patient, tried to be understanding, but you're pushing me too far. Goodbye, Richard. I ended the call. My hands were shaking. Amber looked pale. He's going to cause trouble, she said quietly. He always said the worst thing you could do to him was embarrass him publicly. And I just did that in front of everyone he knows. Then we prepare for trouble, Patricia said. Come on, let's go downstairs. You need to eat something and we need to start planning. We went down to the kitchen. Patricia started making sandwiches while I brewed fresh coffee. Amber sat at the table, looking small and lost in her old clothes. Tell us everything, I said, sitting across from her. Start from the beginning. When did things start to feel wrong? Amber took a deep breath. Looking back, there were signs from the start. But I didn't see them as red flags at the time. We met at a charity fundraiser about 18 months ago. He seemed perfect. Successful, charming, interested in everything I said. He asked me out that night and I said yes. The first few months were amazing. He was attentive, romantic, always surprising me with gifts and dates. He wanted to spend all his time with me. I thought it meant he really cared. But then small things started changing. He'd get upset if I made plans without checking with him first. He said it was because he wanted to spend time with me, that I was choosing others over him. I felt guilty, so I started running everything past him. Patricia set sandwiches in front of us. That's classic isolation technique. Making you feel guilty for having a life outside of him. My friend Tasha noticed. She said I was becoming a different person, that I never hung out anymore. When I mentioned it to Richard, he said Tasha was jealous, that she was trying to break us up because she was single and bitter. He suggested I distance myself from her for a while. So I did. My chest ached hearing this. I'd noticed Amber pulling away from Tasha but thought they just drifted apart naturally. I should have questioned it. He started asking about the ranch around 6 months into the relationship. Casual questions at first. How much land, what we did with it, whether we ever thought about selling. I didn't think much of it. Then he started offering financial advice. Said we were sitting on a gold mine, that we could be wealthy if we developed the property or sold to developers. I told him the ranch wasn't about money, that it was family legacy. How did he react to that? He smiled and said of course he understood. But he kept bringing it up. Different angles each time. About how I could use the money to start my own business, how you could retire comfortably, how we could travel the world. He made it sound like keeping the ranch was selfish somehow, like we were being stubborn by not cashing in. I felt anger rising again. The ranch was our home, our history. For generations of my family had worked this land. It wasn't a commodity to be sold. When did you see the documents? 3 weeks ago. He left his laptop open when he went to take a shower. Usually he's really careful about closing it, password protecting everything. But that day he forgot. I was walking past and saw a document open. It had our ranch address as the header. I should have closed the laptop and walked away. But I couldn't. I started reading. It was a property analysis, detailing the land value, development potential, estimated profits from subdividing and selling. There were emails to real estate developers, asking about interest in the property. And there was a timeline. A timeline? For after the wedding. It laid out steps for how he'd gain legal access to the ranch through marriage. How he'd convince me to transfer partial ownership, then push for selling. There were notes about my personality, things I'd told him in confidence, all analyzed for how he could use them to manipulate me. The sandwich I'd been holding fell onto the plate. He wrote that down? Actually documented his manipulation plan? Amber nodded, tears streaming down her face. He had notes about my relationship with you, Mom. He wrote that you and I were close but that he could drive a wedge between us by convincing me you didn't respect my choices, that you were overprotective. He planned to isolate me from you, from Patricia, from everyone, until I had no one to turn to but him. Patricia stood up abruptly and walked to the window, her shoulders tense. That's sociopathic. That's not just a con, that's a long-term psychological operation. I confronted him that night. I told him I'd seen everything. He didn't even try to deny it at first. He just got really cold and said I didn't understand, that it was more complicated than it looked. Then he switched tactics and started crying, saying he did love me but he also had financial problems, gambling debts. He said he'd been desperate and made mistakes but he wanted to change, wanted to be better. I almost believed him. He was so convincing. But then he said if I really loved him, I'd help him fix his problems by at least considering options for the ranch. That's when I knew he wasn't sorry. He was just sorry he got caught. But you stayed with him? He threatened me. Not physically, not at first. But he said if I left him, he'd tell everyone I'd been lying about things. He had recorded conversations where I'd vented about you, Mum, normal stuff daughters say when they're frustrated with their mothers. He said he'd edit them to make it sound like you were abusive, that he'd ruin your reputation. And he said he had access to my banking information, my passwords, that he could make my life very difficult. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I pretended to forgive him. I kept planning the wedding, kept smiling, kept acting like everything was fine. I thought maybe I could find a way out. Or maybe part of me hoped I was wrong, that he really would change. Then yesterday he showed me something on his phone. He'd been having regular meetings with a developer named Scott Hendricks. They'd already drawn up preliminary plans for turning the ranch into a luxury housing development. 150 homes, a golf course, shopping center. They were just waiting for the wedding to move forward. That's when I knew I couldn't go through with it. But I was terrified to just cancel, to tell him no. I knew he'd react badly. So I wrote that note this morning and hid it in my bouquet. I figured at the ceremony, with all those witnesses, it would be safer to walk away. The kitchen was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. I tried to process everything I'd just heard. This man had targeted my daughter specifically because of our property. He'd spent 18 months grooming her, isolating her, breaking her down, all for land and money. We're going to destroy him, I said. The words came out flat, certain. Amber looked up, startled by my tone. I mean it. He's not getting away with this. We're going to expose him for exactly what he is and make sure he can't do this to anyone else. How? I don't have proof of most of this. I didn't take photos of those documents. It's my word against his. Then we find proof. We talk to his ex-girlfriend. We dig into his past. We hire investigators if we have to. And we start by securing this property legally so he can never touch it. Patricia turned from the window. I know a private investigator. Good one, discreet. Used to be FBI. If Richard has a history of this, she'll find it. Call her tonight. I want her on this immediately. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Mrs. Walker? This is Jennifer Bennett, Richard's mother. I put the phone on speaker. Yes. I'm calling to try to sort out this mess from today. My son is devastated, as you can imagine. This whole situation has been extremely embarrassing for our family. I understand your son is upset. However, Amber made the right choice for herself. Did she? Or did you pressure her into this? Richard mentioned you've never really approved of their relationship. The accusation caught me off guard. That's not true. I had concerns, but I wanted Amber to be happy. Well, she doesn't seem very happy now, does she? She seemed quite distressed. Richard thinks she might need professional help. He's worried about her mental state. The gaslighting was apparently a family trait. Amber is fine. She simply chose not to get married. At the altar. In front of everyone. After months of planning and significant financial investment from both families. You must understand how this looks. I understand it looks like a woman who almost made a terrible mistake and found the courage to stop it in time. That's a very convenient narrative. Richard has another perspective. He's considering his legal options regarding the financial losses and the emotional distress this has caused. Tell Richard to have his lawyer contact our lawyer. This conversation is over. I hung up before she could respond. Amber was staring at her plate, tears streaming down her face again. They're going to make me look crazy. They're going to tell everyone I had a breakdown or I'm mentally ill. Nobody's going to believe me. We'll make them believe you. The truth always comes out eventually. Uncle James appeared in the kitchen doorway. He'd been outside checking the property perimeter. Just got off the phone with Tom from the security company. He's sending over 2 guards tonight and will set up a more permanent system starting Monday. Nobody's getting on this property without us knowing about it. Thank you, James. He nodded and disappeared back outside. Patricia pulled out her phone and started making calls. I moved my chair closer to Amber's and took her hand. I need you to be strong now. I know you're scared and exhausted, but we have work to do. Tomorrow you're going to write down everything you remember. Every controlling behavior, every threat, every manipulation. Every question he asked about the ranch. Timeline, dates, everything. Can you do that? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes. Good. And we're going to find Nicole, his ex-girlfriend. If he did this to her too, that's a pattern. That's evidence. What if she won't talk to us? We'll convince her. If Richard hurt her too, she'll want justice just like we do. Patricia finished her call and came back to the table. The investigator's name is Sharon Kim. She's coming by tomorrow afternoon to talk to Amber. She said this kind of case is her specialty. She's already starting a preliminary background check on Richard, seeing what she can dig up. That's good. Also, I called your lawyer friend Catherine. She handles restraining orders and family law. She's going to expedite the paperwork so we can file first thing Monday morning. I looked at my sister gratefully. What would we do without you? Never have to find out. We're family. We protect each other. Amber stood up suddenly. I need to go lie down. Is that okay? Of course, sweetheart. Get some rest. We'll handle things down here. She left the kitchen, moving slowly, like she was carrying a tremendous weight. I watched her go, my heart breaking for everything she'd been through. Once she was gone, Patricia sat back down across from me. This is bad, Diane. Really bad. I know. I mean it. This guy is dangerous. Not in a physical sense necessarily, but he's calculated. He planned this whole thing meticulously. He's not going to just walk away because the wedding didn't happen. So what do you think he'll do? He'll try to salvage what he can. Either by harassing Amber until she breaks and comes back to him, or by retaliating financially and socially. He'll want to punish you both for embarrassing him and ruining his plans. Let him try. We have resources. We have lawyers. Money and lawyers can only do so much. We need evidence. Real, concrete evidence that he's a con artist. Otherwise, it's a he said she said situation, and those rarely end well for the woman. Then we get evidence. Starting with Nicole. Patricia pulled out her phone again. I'll see if I can find out which gallery she works at. There's only 3 or 4 in the downtown area. While she made calls, I sat at the table, staring out the window at the ranch stretching into the distance. The sun had fully set now, leaving everything in twilight. Security lights were clicking on around the property, illuminating the barn and the driveway. This land meant everything to me. It was where I'd grown up, where I'd raised Amber after her father died. Every acre held memories. And Richard had seen it as nothing but a commodity, something to be bought and sold and profited from. The anger in my chest was building into something cold and determined. He'd made a mistake when he targeted my daughter and my family. He'd miscalculated badly. Patricia looked up from her phone. Found her. Nicole Brennan works at the Riverside Art Gallery. They're closed tomorrow, Sunday, but they open at 10 on Monday. We'll be there when they open. What if she doesn't want to talk? What if Richard has her scared too? Then we convince her that speaking up is the only way to stop him from doing this to someone else. We'll figure it out. James came back inside. Guards are here. I've got them set up at the main gate and doing regular patrols around the perimeter. Nobody's getting near the house tonight. Thank you. I don't know if it's necessary, but better safe than sorry. It's necessary. That boy has got rage in him. I saw it in his eyes at the venue. He's not the type to let this go quietly. He was right. Richard had built an elaborate plan and watched it collapse in a single moment. Men like that didn't accept defeat gracefully. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, this isn't over. You and your daughter will regret humiliating me. Everything you care about can be taken away. I showed it to Patricia and James. They both read it, their faces hardening. Forward that to Gerald immediately, Patricia said. That's a threat. That's evidence. I forwarded the message to our lawyer, then blocked the number. But 2 minutes later, another text came from a different number. You think you can hide on that ranch forever? You think you're safe? I blocked that one too. Then another came. And another. Different numbers each time, but all with the same threatening tone. He's using burner phones or apps, Patricia said. Trying to harass and intimidate. Don't respond. Just keep blocking and keep records of everything. But the messages kept coming. 10, 15, 20. All variations on the same theme. Threats, accusations, attempts to make us afraid. He's spiraling, James observed. Good. Means he's making mistakes. Scared people do stupid things, leave trails. He was right. With each message, Richard was building our case against him. Every threat was evidence of his true nature. Finally, the messages stopped. The house fell quiet except for the sounds of the ranch at night, the distant sounds of horses in the stable, the wind through the trees. I went upstairs to check on Amber. She was curled up in her old bed, still wearing the sweatpants and t-shirt, her wedding dress abandoned on the floor like a discarded dream. I picked up the dress carefully and hung it in the closet. Maybe someday she'd want to repurpose the fabric or donate it. But for tonight it needed to be out of sight. I sat on the edge of her bed. She wasn't asleep, just staring at the wall. How are you holding up? I feel numb. Like this is happening to someone else. That's normal. Shock. Give yourself time to process. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Fighting back instead of just trying to move on? I think you're being incredibly brave. And yes, fighting back is the right thing. Not just for you but for the next woman he might target. She rolled over to face me. I loved him, Mom. At least I thought I did. I feel so stupid for not seeing what he was. Love makes us vulnerable. That's not stupidity, that's being human. He exploited that deliberately. None of this is your fault. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed. All the times I explained away his behavior or made excuses. How did I let it get that far? Because he was good at what he did. He knew exactly how to manipulate, exactly what to say to keep you doubting yourself. That's what makes people like him so dangerous. She was quiet for a moment, then, what if we can't prove anything? What if it really does become just my word against his? Then we'll deal with that if it happens. But I have a feeling once we start digging we're going to find he's left a trail. People like Richard never have just one victim. There are always others. The investigator will really be able to find stuff? Sharon Kim is supposedly the best. If there's anything to find, she'll find it. Amber nodded slowly. I want to help. I want to be part of taking him down. You will be. But for tonight, just rest. Let Patricia and me handle the logistics. Okay. She closed her eyes. Mom? Thank you for not making me explain in front of everyone. Thank you for just trusting me enough to leave with you. Always, baby. Always. I stayed there until her breathing evened out and she fell into exhausted sleep. Then I went back downstairs to where Patricia and James were still working, making plans, building our defense. The fight was just beginning, but we were ready. Sunday morning arrived with heavy clouds and the promise of rain. I woke early after a restless night, my mind churning through everything that had happened. The house was quiet except for the sounds of the security guards changing shifts outside. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table watching dawn break over the ranch. This had been my morning ritual for decades, but today it felt different. Heavier. Like the peaceful life I'd built here had been invaded by something ugly. Patricia came downstairs around 7, already dressed and alert. She poured herself coffee and joined me at the table. How's Amber? Still sleeping. I checked on her an hour ago. She needs the rest. We all do. But there's too much to do. Patricia pulled out her phone. I've been emailing with Sharon Kim, the investigator. She did some preliminary research last night. You want to hear what she found? Tell me. Richard Christopher Bennett, age 32. Employed as an accountant at Morrison Financial Group, but Sharon talked to someone there. He's actually been on probation at work for the past 6 months due to some questionable handling of client funds. Nothing proven, but enough smoke to make them watch him closely. So his career isn't as stable as he pretended. Not even close. Sharon also found 2 previous engagements. One 3 years ago to a woman named Sophie Crawford, ended abruptly 6 months before their planned wedding. Another 2 years ago to Nicole Brennan, our Nicole, which lasted only 4 months before she broke it off. 2 failed engagements before Amber. That's a pattern. It gets better. Or worse depending on how you look at it. Both women came from wealthy families. Sophie's family owns a chain of hotels. Nicole's father developed commercial real estate before he retired. My coffee went cold in my hands. He targets wealthy women specifically. Looks like it. Sharon's trying to locate Sophie Crawford now to see if she'll talk. And she's already found Nicole's contact information. The gallery opens at 10, but Nicole works the morning shift on Mondays. Sharon suggests we go tomorrow as planned. I processed this information. Richard was a serial con artist, moving from one wealthy target to the next. The only question was how many women he'd hurt before Amber. Has there been any activity from him since those text messages last night? Nothing. Either he's regrouping or he's planning something. James kept the guards on all night. No one tried to approach the property. Good. Amber appeared in the doorway looking small and tired. She'd pulled her hair into a messy bun and was wearing one of my old sweatshirts. Morning, sweetheart. How did you sleep? Not great. Kept having dreams about the wedding. She sat down at the table. What are we doing today? Patricia filled her in on what Sharon had discovered about Richard's past. Amber listened with an expression that shifted from surprise to disgust. He did this before. He's done this to other women. Looks that way. We're going to talk to Nicole tomorrow and hopefully Sophie too if we can track her down. If they're willing to share their stories, we can establish a pattern of behavior. What about today? I can't just sit here doing nothing. I'll go crazy. Today you work on that timeline like Gerald suggested, I said. Write down everything you can remember in as much detail as possible. And we need to get your things from your apartment. Richard has a key. He might be there. Then we go with James and one of the guards. We pack your essentials quickly and get out. You're not going back there to live anyway. Where will I stay? Here. Where you belong. Your old room is yours for as long as you need it. She looked relieved. Okay, let's do it. I want my laptop most of all. If I can get into Richard's cloud storage somehow, maybe I can find those documents I saw. Would you be able to access his files? Maybe. He uses the same password for everything. I only know it because he told me in case of emergency. He never thought I'd use it against him. Patricia and I exchanged glances. We need to ask Gerald about the legality of that. But having those documents would be huge. I'll do whatever it takes. I want him stopped. We spent the morning preparing. James and one of the security guards, a former military man named Derek, agreed to accompany us to Amber's apartment. Patricia stayed at the ranch to continue coordinating with lawyers and the investigator. Around noon, we loaded into James's truck. Amber was quiet on the drive, staring out the window. Her apartment was in a modern complex about 20 minutes from the ranch, the kind of place with a gym and a pool that young professionals liked. What if he's there? Amber asked as we pulled into the parking lot. Then Derek handles it while we get your stuff, James said. But most likely he's not. He's probably at his own place licking his wounds. We parked and headed up to the second-floor apartment. Amber's hands shook as she unlocked the door. We entered cautiously, but the place was empty. Okay, let's move fast, I said. Amber, pack clothes and personal items. I'll get your documents and laptop. James, you help wherever needed. The apartment was small but nicely furnished. I recognized pieces Amber had picked out, mixed with things that were clearly Richard's choices. Everything was neat, almost obsessively organized. I went to the bedroom and found Amber's laptop on the desk. I packed it carefully in its case along with the charger. Then I gathered her important documents from a file drawer. Birth certificate, passport, social security card, insurance paperwork. In the closet, I found boxes of her childhood things that she'd stored here. Photos, yearbooks, old swimming medals. I couldn't carry everything, but I grabbed what I could. Amber was in the bedroom, throwing clothes into suitcases. She moved mechanically, not even looking at what she was packing. You doing okay? I hate this place now. I used to love it here, thought it was our little home. Now all I see is where he controlled me. Then we pack it all up today. You never have to come back. She nodded and kept packing. I went to the bathroom to grab her toiletries. As I was collecting items from the medicine cabinet, I noticed something odd. There was a small camera mounted in the corner near the ceiling, barely visible behind a smoke detector. James, I called. Can you come here? He appeared in the doorway. I pointed at the camera. Is that what I think it is? He looked up, his expression darkening. That's a surveillance camera. Hidden one too. He pulled out his phone and started walking through the apartment. There's another one in the living room. And the bedroom. This place is wired. Amber appeared behind us, her face going pale. He was watching me? In my own home. Looks like it. Derek, we need to document this and take the cameras as evidence. Derek got to work photographing and carefully removing the cameras while Amber stood frozen in the hallway. He watched everything I did. Every private moment. Every phone call with friends. When I changed clothes, when I cried, everything. I pulled her into a hug. This is evidence, sweetheart. This proves he was monitoring and controlling you. This is exactly what we need. I feel violated. I feel sick. I know. But we're going to use this against him. Come on, let's finish packing and get out of here. We worked quickly, gathering everything we could fit in James's truck. The cameras went into evidence bags that Derek had in his security kit. By the time we finished, it was mid-afternoon. As we were loading the last boxes, a car pulled into the parking lot. Richard's silver sedan. He got out and started walking toward us, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. What the hell do you think you're doing? We're getting Amber's belongings, I said calmly. She won't be living here anymore. This is my apartment too. You can't just come here and take things. Amber's name is on the lease. She has every right to collect her property. He ignored me and turned to Amber. We need to talk. Alone. No. Amber's voice was stronger than I expected. I don't want to talk to you. You don't get to just walk away from this. From us. We had plans, we had a future. We had lies. You were using me. Using you? I loved you. I was trying to build a life with you. You put cameras in the apartment. You were spying on me. Richard's expression flickered. That's for security. This isn't a great neighborhood. There's a camera in the bedroom, Derek said, stepping forward. He was a large man and his presence was clearly making Richard nervous. That's not security, that's surveillance. That's illegal without consent. Who the hell are you? Security. And you need to step back. Richard looked at all of us, calculating his options. Then his face twisted into something ugly. Fine. Take your things. But this isn't over. You owe me, Amber. You owe me for the time I invested, the money I spent, everything I did for you. I owe you nothing. Your mother has poisoned you against me. She's always been jealous of what we had. She couldn't stand that you were building a life separate from her. The gaslighting attempt was so blatant it was almost funny. Almost. My mother saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life, Amber said. Now get out of our way. We loaded the last box into the truck. Richard stood in the parking lot, watching us with hatred in his eyes. As we pulled away, I looked back to see him still standing there, his hands clenched into fists. That went better than I expected, James said. He was scared, Derek observed. The cameras being discovered threw him off balance. He knows that's criminal. Good. Let him be scared. We drove back to the ranch in silence. Amber stared out the window, processing everything. When we arrived, Patricia was waiting on the porch with a grim expression. What happened? We got all of Amber's things. And we found surveillance cameras hidden throughout the apartment. Patricia's eyes widened. He was recording her? Looks like it. Derek documented everything. We'll turn it over to Gerald tomorrow. Sharon Kim called while you were gone. She found Sophie Crawford. She's willing to talk to us. She lives in California now, but she'll do a video call tomorrow afternoon. That's great news. We unloaded Amber's belongings, carrying boxes up to her room. She moved through it all in a daze, still processing the violation of the hidden cameras. Finally, everything was inside. James and Derek did another security sweep of the property while Patricia made dinner. I sat with Amber in her room, helping her sort through boxes. Talk to me. Tell me what you're thinking. I'm thinking about all the times I was in that apartment, believing I was alone. All the private moments that weren't private. He was watching me, probably laughing at me. Or using what he saw to manipulate you better. Either way, it's sick. But it's also evidence. Those cameras prove he was monitoring and controlling you. It's not enough though, is it? We need more. We're building a case. The cameras, the pattern with other women, the documents about the ranch. It's all adding up. She pulled her laptop out of its case. Let me try to access his cloud storage. Maybe I can find something there. Are you sure you want to do that now? You've been through a lot today. I need to do something. I need to feel like I'm fighting back instead of just being a victim. She opened the laptop and started typing. I watched as she navigated to a cloud storage login page and entered credentials. The system accepted them and suddenly we were looking at Richard's files. There were hundreds of documents. Financial records, personal files, photos. Amber started clicking through folders, her expression growing more horrified with each discovery. Oh my God. What is it? There's a whole folder labeled Ranch Project. And another one called A Plan. She opened the Ranch Project folder. Inside were the documents she described. Property surveys, land valuations, development proposals. But there were also emails, dozens of them, between Richard and various developers and real estate companies. I read over her shoulder, my blood running cold. The emails laid out a detailed plan for acquiring the ranch through marriage, then pressuring for sale or development. Richard had been corresponding with these people for months, treating our family property like it was already his to sell. Print all of this, I said. Save copies to a secure drive. This is exactly what we need. Amber opened the other folder, the one labeled, A Plan. Inside were personal notes, almost like a diary, documenting Richard's strategy for targeting wealthy women. The first entry was dated 3 years ago. Met Sophie at charity function. Hotel heiress, family worth 50M plus. Pretty, naive, emotionally vulnerable after mother's death. Good target. Amber gasped. He wrote this? He actually documented his cons. Keep reading. The entries continued, chronicling Richard's relationship with Sophie. How he'd gained her trust, isolated her from family, started asking about her inheritance. Then an entry from 6 months before their planned wedding. Sophie's father getting suspicious. Hired investigator. Need to extract what I can and end this cleanly. Moving to Seattle for fresh start. Then entries about Nicole, real estate developer's daughter. Not as much money as hoped but still viable target. She's smart though, might be harder to manipulate. And finally entries about Amber, met AW at fundraiser. Family owns 300-acre ranch outside city. Property worth 15-20M easy, more with development. She's perfect. Trusting, kind, desperate to be loved after father's death. This is the big one. Reading his cold, calculated assessment of my daughter's vulnerabilities made me want to be sick. He'd targeted her specifically because she'd lost her father, knowing grief had made her emotionally vulnerable. The entries continued, documenting his entire strategy. How he'd isolated her from friends and family. How he'd manufactured financial problems to create urgency. How he'd planned to pressure her into signing over partial property rights after the wedding, then use those rights to force a sale. "This is it," Amber whispered. "This is everything we need." He documented his own crimes. "Save it all. Multiple copies. Send one to Gerald, one to Sharon, keep one for ourselves." She started copying files, her hands shaking. Why would he keep all this? Why would he write it down? Arrogance probably. He thought he was too smart to get caught. Thought he'd covered his tracks too well. We spent the next 2 hours going through files, saving everything relevant. Financial records showing his gambling debts. Emails planning the ranch development. Personal notes about manipulating Amber. It was all there, a complete blueprint of his con. By the time we finished, Amber looked exhausted but also strangely energized. "We've got him. With this evidence, we can prove everything." "We do. Tomorrow we take this to Gerald and let him handle the legal side. And we'll talk to Nicole and Sophie, get their stories on record too." Patricia called us down for dinner. We sat around the kitchen table, the four of us, eating and talking about next steps. The mood was still heavy but less desperate now. We had evidence. We had a path forward. After dinner my phone rang. Gerald, our lawyer. "Diane, I've been reviewing the photos of those surveillance cameras Derek sent over. This is serious. Recording someone without their knowledge in their own home is illegal in this state, especially in places where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy like bedrooms and bathrooms. So we can use this?" "Absolutely. Combined with the threatening messages he sent yesterday, we have grounds for an immediate restraining order and potentially criminal charges. I'm filing first thing tomorrow morning." Amber also accessed his cloud storage. We found documents proving he was planning to con her and target the ranch. How did she access his files? He gave her his password for emergencies. Gerald was quiet for a moment. That's murky legally. He might argue she violated his privacy. But if those documents prove fraud and criminal intent, it might not matter. "Send me everything you found. I'll review it tonight." I handed the phone to Amber, who explained what we'd discovered. Gerald listened, asking occasional questions. Finally, he said he'd call back after reviewing everything. We spent the evening in the living room, the four of us, talking and planning. Around 9, Amber went upstairs to continue working on her timeline. I walked outside to check on the security guards and get some air. The ranch was peaceful under the stars. I could see the lights from the barn where the horses were settled for the night. In the distance, a owl called out. This place had always been my sanctuary, my safe haven. Richard had tried to take it away but he'd failed. James joined me on the porch. "Hell of a couple of days." "That's putting it mildly." "She's strong, your girl. Takes after you." "She's stronger than I gave her credit for. Stronger than she gave herself credit for." "What happens next?" "We keep building the case. Get the restraining order, talk to the other women he hurt, work with the lawyers and investigator. And we make sure he pays for what he did." "You think he'll come after you? Try something desperate?" "Maybe. That's why you and the guards are here. We've got your backs. This property's locked down tight." I went back inside feeling slightly more secure. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight we were safe. Tonight we had evidence and allies and a plan. Amber was in her room when I checked on her before bed. She'd been writing for hours, filling pages with her timeline of the relationship. "How's it going?" "It's hard. Reliving all of it, seeing the patterns so clearly now. But also cathartic in a way. Like I'm taking back control by documenting what he did." "You're incredibly brave." "I don't feel brave. I feel angry. And determined. I'm not going to let him get away with this." "Neither am I. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day." I left her there and went to my own room. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind kept replaying everything, seeing all the signs I should have noticed earlier. But eventually, exhaustion won out and I drifted off. Tomorrow we'd start the real fight. But tonight we'd survived. And sometimes survival was enough. Monday morning arrived with clear skies and purpose. I woke early again, but this time the anxiety in my chest was mixed with determination. We had evidence now. We had a plan. We had people on our side. Gerald called at 8 o'clock sharp. I've reviewed everything you sent. This is substantial. Richard's notes alone prove intent to defraud. Combined with the surveillance cameras and threatening messages, we have multiple criminal violations. What's our next step? I'm filing for an emergency restraining order this morning. I've also contacted the district attorney's office. They're very interested in the surveillance evidence. There may be criminal charges forthcoming. How soon? The restraining order should be granted today. Criminal charges will take longer, need more investigation. But with what you've provided, I'd say he's looking at charges for illegal surveillance, fraud, potentially stalking and harassment. Good. I also reviewed the cloud storage access. Legally it's complicated. Richard gave Amber the password, which could be argued as consent for access. But he'll likely claim she exceeded the scope of that consent. However, the documents prove criminal intent, which changes things. If prosecutors want those documents, they can subpoena them directly from the cloud service, making the access method irrelevant. So we're in the clear? For now. Just don't access his files again. What you've already copied is enough. After the call, I made breakfast while Patricia and Amber got ready. We were due at the art gallery at 10 to talk to Nicole, then a video call with Sophie Crawford at 2. Amber came downstairs wearing jeans and a green sweater, her hair pulled back. She looked tired but resolved. How are you feeling? Nervous. What if Nicole doesn't want to help? What if she's still scared of Richard? Then we respect that. But if she's willing to share her story, it strengthens our case significantly. We drove downtown to the Riverside Art Gallery, a small but elegant space showcasing local artists. A young woman with red hair was arranging paintings near the front window. She looked up as we entered. Good morning. Can I help you find something? We're actually looking for Nicole Brennan. Is she working today? The woman's friendly expression shifted to caution. I'm Nicole. Who's asking? Patricia stepped forward. My name is Patricia Walker. This is my sister Diane and her daughter Amber. We're hoping we could talk to you about Richard Bennett. Nicole's face went pale. She glanced around the empty gallery. I don't want to talk about him. Please, Amber said. I was engaged to him. I just walked away from our wedding 2 days ago. I think he did to me what he did to you. Nicole stared at Amber for a long moment, emotions flickering across her face. Finally she said, Give me a minute to lock the door. We can talk in the back. She flipped the open sign to closed and led us through the gallery to a small office. We sat on a worn couch while Nicole took the desk chair. You really left him at the altar? Yes. He was targeting my family's property, planning to con me into giving him access to it after we married. Nicole let out a bitter laugh. Same playbook. Different target. Will you tell us what happened? We're building a case against him. Nicole was quiet, struggling with the decision. Then she nodded. Okay. But I need your word this stays confidential unless it's needed for legal purposes. You have my word, I said. I met Richard 2 years ago at a real estate conference. My father develops commercial properties and I was there representing his company. Richard was charming, attentive. We started dating. At first everything seemed great. He was romantic, always surprising me with thoughtful gestures. But then he started asking questions about my father's business. About properties, valuations, deals in progress. I thought he was just interested in my life. After about 3 months he proposed. It was fast but I was caught up in it. We started planning a wedding. That's when things changed. He became possessive, controlling. He wanted to know where I was all the time. He'd get angry if I didn't respond to texts immediately. Then I caught him going through my father's files when he was at my apartment. He said he was just curious about the business since we'd be family. But something felt wrong. I started paying more attention. I found documents on his laptop. Plans for how he could access my father's business accounts, how he could use our marriage to gain signing authority on contracts. He was planning to embezzle from my father's company. Amber gasped. Did you confront him? I did. He denied everything at first, then he got angry. He said I was paranoid, that I was looking for problems. When I said I wanted to break off the engagement, he threatened me. How? He had photos of me. Private photos I'd sent him. He said if I left, he'd send them to my father's business partners, post them online. He'd ruin my reputation and my father's business. I was terrified. But I told my father anyway. He hired a lawyer immediately, threatened Richard with prosecution if he released anything. Richard backed down and left town. I thought it was over. Did he release the photos? No. My father's lawyer scared him enough that he didn't dare. But for months I was terrified every day that they'd surface. It took me a year of therapy to feel normal again. Nicole's hands were shaking. Patricia handed her a tissue. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Amber said. Did you ever hear from him again? Once about a year ago. He sent me an email from a new address. Said he was sorry that he'd been desperate because of financial problems. Wanted to know if I'd forgive him. I blocked the address and never responded. Would you be willing to give a statement to our lawyer? To testify if it comes to that? Nicole hesitated. I don't know. I've tried so hard to move on from this. To not let him have power over me anymore. I understand. But if you don't speak up, he'll keep doing this to other women. There was someone before you. And Amber after you. How many more will there be? Have you talked to Sophie? She was before me. We're talking to her this afternoon. Do you know what happened with them? Only what Richard told me, which was probably all lies. He said she broke off their engagement because of family pressure. Looking back now, I'm betting he tried something similar with her. Our investigator thinks so too. Nicole stood up and paced the small office. If I testify, he'll come after me again. He'll try to hurt me. He won't be able to. We're getting a restraining order today. With your testimony and our evidence, he'll likely face criminal charges. He won't be free to harass anyone. She stopped pacing and looked at us. You really think you can stop him? We know we can. But we need your help. Nicole pulled out her phone and scrolled through old emails. I saved everything. The threatening messages, the emails, screenshots of his plans I found. I never deleted any of it because part of me knew I might need it someday. That's perfect. Would you send those to our lawyer? She nodded slowly. Okay. Yes. I'll do it. Give me his contact information. Patricia gave her Gerald's email and phone number. Nicole immediately started forwarding emails and files. There's something else you should know, Nicole said. Richard has a partner. At least he did when we were together. Another guy, someone he met through gambling. They worked together on cons. What do you mean? The partner would research targets, find wealthy women, feed information to Richard. They'd split whatever Richard gained. I only found out about it because I overheard a phone call once. Richard was talking about percentages and payouts. Do you know the partner's name? Scott something. Richard called him Scotty. Amber and I exchanged glances. Scott Hendricks. That sounds right. You know him? He's the developer Richard was working with to sell our ranch. I saw emails between them in Richard's files. Then he's not just a partner, he's a co-conspirator. They've been working together to target and defraud women. This changed everything. Richard wasn't a lone con artist. He had help, someone feeding him information and helping him plan. We talked with Nicole for another hour, getting details, making sure she had support resources. By the time we left, she'd sent Gerald everything she had and agreed to give a formal statement. Back in the car, Amber was processing what we'd learned. He's done this multiple times. With a partner. This is organized crime, not just some guy being opportunistic. Which means our case is even stronger. But it also means we're dealing with someone more dangerous than we thought. We stopped for lunch at a small cafe before heading back to the ranch for the video call with Sophie. Patricia ordered while I checked messages. Gerald had texted, restraining order approved, goes into effect immediately. Good news. The restraining order came through. Richard has to stay at least 500 feet away from you, me, and the ranch property. If he violates it, he'll be arrested. Does he know yet? He will shortly. Gerald's having it served this afternoon. We ate quickly and drove back to the ranch. Sharon Kim, the investigator, was waiting for us, along with Gerald, who'd driven out to be present for the Sophie call. We all gathered in the living room. Patricia set up her laptop on the coffee table, and at exactly 2 o'clock, the video call connected. Sophie Crawford appeared on screen. She was in her early 30s, blonde, with a careful, guarded expression. Behind her was a bright, modern apartment with a view of what looked like San Francisco. Thank you for talking with us, I said. I know this isn't easy. The investigator explained the situation. That you're building a case against Richard. I want to help if I can. Can you tell us what happened between you and Richard? Sophie took a breath. We met about 4 years ago at a charity event in Seattle. My family owns a chain of hotels and we were hosting a fundraiser. Richard was there, claimed to be interested in investing. He was charming, intelligent. We started dating. It moved fast. Too fast, I realize now. Within 6 months he proposed. My parents were hesitant, said they wanted me to wait, but I thought I was in love. We started planning a wedding. That's when things got strange. Richard started asking detailed questions about the family business. About ownership structure, about how decisions were made, about my trust fund. He'd frame it as wanting to understand his future wife's family, but it felt invasive. Then he started trying to create distance between me and my parents. He'd interpret innocent comments they made as criticism of me. He'd suggest they didn't respect my choices. He wanted me to prove my independence from them. What finally made you realize something was wrong? My father hired a private investigator. He'd been suspicious of Richard's background stories, things that didn't quite add up. The investigator found gambling debts, failed business ventures, a pattern of targeting wealthy women. When my father showed me the report, I was devastated. I confronted Richard. He denied everything, said my father was making it up because he didn't approve of our relationship. But I'd already started noticing things. Money missing from my accounts. Documents he'd asked me to sign without reading them. I realized he'd been positioning himself to access my trust fund. I ended the engagement immediately. He threatened to sue for breach of promise, claimed my family had defamed him. But my father's lawyers handled it. Richard backed off and left Seattle. I heard later that he'd moved on to someone else quickly. I felt guilty for not warning her, but I was too traumatized to think clearly. I'm sorry if that was you. That was Nicole, Amber said. And then me. Sophie's face filled with sympathy. I'm so sorry. I should have reported him, should have warned people somehow. But I was embarrassed and scared. You have nothing to apologize for, I said. He's the one who should be held accountable. Sharon Kim leaned forward. Sophie, would you be willing to give a formal statement? To testify if this goes to trial? Yes, absolutely. If it helps stop him, I'll do whatever you need. Do you remember anyone Richard worked with? A partner or associate? He had a friend. They'd talk on the phone sometimes when Richard thought I wasn't listening. I only heard Richard's side of conversations, but it sounded like they were planning something together. I never got a name though. Could it have been someone named Scott Hendricks? Maybe? The name sounds vaguely familiar. Sharon made notes. We talked for another 30 minutes, getting details, establishing timeline. Sophie was clear and credible, her account matching what Nicole and Amber had experienced. After the call ended, Gerald leaned back in his chair. 3 victims, same pattern, clear intent to defraud. With the documentary evidence from Richard's files and the surveillance cameras, we have a strong criminal case. How long until charges are filed? I've already briefed the DA. They're reviewing everything today. I'd expect an arrest warrant within the week. An arrest warrant? Amber looked surprised. He's going to be arrested? Multiple felonies. Fraud, illegal surveillance, stalking, possibly extortion depending on how aggressive he gets about the wedding expenses. Yes, he's looking at arrest and prosecution. Good, Amber said firmly. He deserves it. Sharon closed her laptop. I'm going to keep digging into Scott Hendricks. If he's been helping Richard target women, he's criminally liable too. I'll also see if there are other victims we haven't found yet. How many could there be? Hard to say. Richard's been at this for at least 4 years that we know of. If he's averaging 1 target per year, there could be a dozen women or more. The thought made me sick. How many lives had this man damaged? How many women had he manipulated and hurt? After Sharon and Gerald left, the 3 of us sat in the living room, exhausted but relieved. We did it, Amber said. We built a real case. You did it. You were brave enough to walk away and brave enough to fight back. I had help. I couldn't have done any of this alone. Patricia's phone rang. She answered, listened, then her expression hardened. When? Okay. Thank you for letting us know. She hung up and looked at us. That was Derek, the security guard. Richard just tried to enter the ranch property. He was stopped at the gate and told about the restraining order. He claimed he just wanted to talk, but when Derek said no, Richard became verbally aggressive. Derek called the police. Is he still there? No, he left before police arrived. But it's documented. First restraining order violation. He's not going to stop, Amber said. He's going to keep coming after us. Let him. Every violation is more evidence. Every threat, every contact, it all builds the case against him. But I shared Amber's concern. Richard was unraveling, becoming desperate. Desperate people made dangerous choices. That evening, as the sun set over the ranch, I stood on the porch and watched the security guards making their rounds. We'd taken every precaution we could. Locked down the property, documented everything, built a legal case. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still ahead. That Richard had one more move to make before this was truly over. I just hoped we'd be ready when he made it. 2 weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, police interviews, and court proceedings. The criminal investigation moved faster than expected once the district attorney saw the evidence. Richard was arrested on charges of illegal surveillance, fraud, and stalking. His partner, Scott Hendricks, was arrested on conspiracy charges. The arrests made local news. Local accountant arrested for multiple fraud schemes, read one headline. Another, serial con artist targeted wealthy women, police say. Amber read every article, watched every news segment. I worried she was dwelling too much on it, but she said it helped to see Richard exposed publicly, to know that people finally saw him for what he really was. I'm not the crazy one, she said one morning at breakfast. Everyone knows now that he's the liar. The media attention was intense for about a week. Reporters called asking for interviews. Other women came forward with stories about Richard, though none had gotten as far as engagement. The police were building a massive case. Through it all, we tried to maintain some normalcy at the ranch. The horses still needed feeding, the property still needed maintenance. The routine helped, giving us something concrete to focus on beyond the legal drama. Amber started therapy with a specialist in abuse recovery. Dr. Martinez was a gentle woman in her 50s who'd worked with victims of manipulation for decades. After the first session, Amber came home looking drained but hopeful. She says what I'm feeling is normal. That it takes time to rebuild trust, even trust in yourself. But she thinks I'm handling it well, all things considered. You're doing great, sweetheart. I don't feel great. I feel angry and sad and confused all at once. That's healing. It's not linear or pretty, but it's progress. Patricia had extended her stay indefinitely, taking time off from her job to help us through the crisis. She'd become the family coordinator, managing lawyers, investigators, and media requests. Without her, I don't know how we would have coped. About 3 weeks after the canceled wedding, Amber's friend Tasha came by the ranch. I hadn't seen her in over a year, not since Richard had driven them apart. Tasha was a vibrant woman with warm brown skin and long braids, always quick to laugh. But when she arrived, she looked nervous, uncertain. I wasn't sure if I should come, she admitted at the door. After everything that happened between us. Come in, I said. Amber's been wanting to see you. Amber came downstairs and froze when she saw Tasha. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Tasha opened her arms and Amber rushed into them, both women crying. I'm so sorry, Amber sobbed. I'm so sorry I pushed you away. Sure, it's okay. I understand now. I should have fought harder to stay in your life. You tried to warn me. You saw what he was doing and I wouldn't listen. They sat on the couch, holding hands, talking for hours. I gave them privacy, hearing only bits and pieces as I moved through the house. Tasha was forgiving, understanding. She'd researched abuse patterns after losing Amber and understood how isolation worked. By the time Tasha left that evening, Amber looked lighter somehow. Like a weight had lifted. Having Tasha back makes me remember who I used to be, she said. Before Richard. I'd forgotten how much I loved laughing with her, how easy our friendship was. Friends like that are rare. I'm glad she came back. She invited me to her birthday party next month. Just a casual thing at her place. I want to go. Then go. Start rebuilding your life, your friendships, everything Richard tried to take away. The next morning, Amber came down to breakfast with a thoughtful expression. She'd been quiet for days, processing everything. Now she seemed to have reached some kind of decision. I want to do something with the ranch, she said. Something meaningful. What do you mean? All of this, everything that happened, it made me realize how many women must be going through similar situations. Being controlled, manipulated, not knowing how to get out. What if we could help them? How? Turn part of the ranch into a retreat center. A place where women recovering from abusive relationships could come to heal, rebuild. We have the space, the privacy. We could offer counseling, job training, support groups. Make it a sanctuary. I sat back, considering. The ranch had been in our family for generations, passed down with the understanding that it would remain unchanged. But maybe evolution wasn't betrayal. Maybe using this land to help others honored its history in a new way. Tell me more about what you're thinking. Her eyes lit up as she explained. She'd been researching while recovering, learning about domestic violence resources, the gaps in services. Many shelters were overcrowded, underfunded. Women often left abusive situations with nowhere to go, no support system. We could convert the old barn into living quarters. Simple but comfortable apartments. Use the south pasture for group sessions, maybe some therapeutic gardening programs. Bring in counselors, job coaches, legal advisors. Create a whole support system. That's ambitious. I know. But we have the resources to do it. And after everything I've been through, I want to use that pain for something positive. I want to help other women find their way out before they get as far as standing at an altar, terrified. Patricia came into the kitchen, catching the tail end of the conversation. A retreat center? I love that idea. You do? Absolutely. I'd want to invest, help get it started. This could be really meaningful work. Over breakfast we brainstormed. How many women could we accommodate? What services would we offer? How would we fund it long term? We could apply for grants, Patricia suggested. Partner with domestic violence organizations. Maybe some of the construction costs could be tax deductible. We'd need proper licensing, insurance, trained staff, I added. This isn't something we can just set up casually. No, but we can plan it properly. Do it right. Amber was more animated than I'd seen her since before the wedding. This could be my purpose, Mum. The reason everything happened the way it did. The next weeks were a flurry of planning. Amber met with architects to discuss barn conversion. Patricia researched licensing requirements and grant opportunities. I consulted with local domestic violence organizations to understand what services were most needed. The response was overwhelming. Every organization we contacted was enthusiastic, offering to partner and support. Apparently, there was a critical shortage of long-term recovery housing for abuse survivors. During this time, the criminal cases against Richard and Scott progressed. Both men pleaded not guilty, but their lawyers were already suggesting plea deals. The evidence was too strong to fight. Nicole and Sophie both gave formal statements. Other women came forward with lesser complaints. The pattern was undeniable. One afternoon, Gerald called with news. Richard's lawyer wants to meet. He's talking about a plea deal. What kind of deal? Richard pleads guilty to fraud and illegal surveillance charges. Agrees to 5 years in prison, restitution to victims, and permanent restraining orders. The stalking charges would be dropped. 5 years isn't enough. It's more than most financial criminals get. And he'd have a felony record, making it harder to victimize anyone else in the future. What about Scott Hendricks? Separate deal. He's also looking at prison time for conspiracy. What does Amber think? That's why I'm calling. This decision affects her most. She should be part of it. I called Amber into the room and put Gerald on speaker. He explained the plea deal again. Amber was quiet for a long moment. If we don't take the deal, what happens? We go to trial. Could take a year or more. You'd have to testify, be cross-examined by Richard's lawyer. So would Nicole and Sophie. It would be public, difficult, traumatic. But we'd win? Probably. The evidence is strong. But trials are unpredictable. A sympathetic jury might believe his sob story about gambling addiction and desperation. Amber looked at me. What do you think, Mum? I think you need to do what feels right for you. If you want to fight this in court, we'll fight. If you want to take the deal and move on, we'll do that. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the ranch. The land that Richard had tried to steal, the home she'd almost lost. I want to take the deal. I want this over so I can focus on the future, on the retreat center. Let him go to prison and let me move forward. Are you sure? Yes. He's already taken too much of my time and energy. I'm not giving him any more. Gerald arranged the plea hearing for 2 weeks later. When the day came, we all went to court. Amber in a blue dress, standing tall and confident. Patricia and I flanking her for support. Richard was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller somehow than I remembered. He didn't look at Amber. Didn't look at any of us. The judge accepted the plea deal. 5 years in state prison, restitution of $200,000 to be split among victims, permanent restraining orders, mandatory mental health treatment. When it was over, we walked out of the courthouse into bright sunshine. Amber stopped on the steps, tilting her face up to the sun. It's really over, she said. He can't hurt me anymore. He never could, Patricia said. You took your power back the moment you handed your mother that note. We went to lunch at Amber's favorite restaurant, celebrating the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. That evening, back at the ranch, Amber showed me updated plans for the retreat center. The architect had created beautiful renderings of the converted barn, showing comfortable apartments with private bathrooms, a communal kitchen and living area, spaces for therapy and classes. I want to call it Second Chances Ranch, she said. Because that's what it is. A place where women get a second chance to build the life they deserve. I love that name. We're breaking ground next month. Patricia secured a major grant from a women's foundation, and several local businesses want to donate materials and labor. It's really happening, Mum? I looked at my daughter, seeing the woman she'd become through all this pain. Stronger, more focused, more compassionate. Richard had tried to break her, but instead, she'd broken free and found her purpose. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Without you standing up in that church and trusting me enough to leave. That's what mothers do. We stand up for our children no matter what. She hugged me tight, and we stood there in the kitchen where I'd raised her, where we'd weathered this storm together, looking forward to the future we were building. The ranch that Richard had tried to steal would instead become a sanctuary for others like Amber. His attempt to destroy us had inadvertently led to something beautiful. Sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting those who hurt you. It's taking what they tried to destroy and making it into something they could never imagine. Something good and pure and healing. We were doing exactly that. Despite Richard's plea deal, there was still the matter of the civil lawsuit his family had filed. Jennifer Bennett, Richard's mother, was suing for $100,000 in wedding expenses, claiming breach of promise and emotional distress. Gerald assured us the case was weak, especially given Richard's criminal conviction. But we still had to respond, gather evidence, prepare for depositions. They're grasping at straws, Gerald explained in his office. Jennifer knows her son is a criminal now, but she's convinced herself that Amber somehow led him astray. Classic denial. So we fight it? We fight it. And we countersue for your emotional distress, therapy costs, security expenses. Send them a message that harassing you has consequences. The deposition was scheduled for a Friday afternoon in late June. Amber would have to answer questions from the Bennett family's lawyer, and they'd all be there watching. The morning of the deposition, Amber was nervous. She dressed professionally in a maroon dress and flats, her hair pulled back neatly. What if I mess up? What if I say something wrong? You won't. Just tell the truth. That's all you have to do. Gerald had prepared her thoroughly, doing practice questions, explaining what to expect. But there was no preparing for the emotional impact of facing Richard's family. We arrived at the law office early. Patricia came with us for support, along with Dr. Martinez, Amber's therapist. Gerald had requested her presence as an expert witness on abuse and manipulation. The conference room was sterile and cold, all glass and steel. The Bennett family was already there. Jennifer, Richard's father Thomas, and their lawyer, a stern man in an expensive suit named Howard Carlyle. Jennifer glared at us as we entered. Thomas looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to be anywhere else. Let's get started, Carlyle said briskly. Ms. Walker, please state your full name for the record. The court reporter's fingers flew over her machine as Amber answered. Amber Nicole Walker. And you were engaged to be married to Richard Christopher Bennett? Yes. You called off the wedding on the day of the ceremony, correct? I didn't call it off. I chose not to go through with it. Semantics. You left my client's son standing at the altar, humiliating him in front of 200 guests. I made a decision to protect myself from a man who was trying to defraud me and my family. That's a serious accusation. One that you can't prove. Gerald interjected. Actually, we have extensive documentation of Mr. Bennett's fraudulent intentions. Documentation that led to his criminal conviction. We're not here to litigate the criminal case. We're here to discuss financial damages. Then let's discuss them, Gerald said. Your clients paid for a wedding. The wedding didn't happen. That's unfortunate. But breach of promise to marry isn't legally recognized in this state. You have no case. We have emotional distress. We have public humiliation. We have a family's reputation damaged. You have a son who's a convicted felon sitting in prison. His actions damaged your reputation, not Ms. Walker's decision to protect herself. The deposition continued for 2 hours. Carlyle tried to paint Amber as fickle, manipulative, someone who'd strung Richard along for his money. Gerald methodically dismantled each accusation with evidence. Amber remained calm throughout, answering questions honestly. When Carlyle asked about the note she'd passed me, she explained clearly, I was afraid. I discovered Richard's plan to defraud my family, and I didn't know how to escape safely. I asked my mother for help. You couldn't have discussed this with him privately beforehand? He'd threatened me multiple times. I didn't feel safe confronting him alone. Threatened how? He said if I ever left him, he'd make sure I regretted it. That he'd ruin my reputation and my family's property. Do you have proof of these threats? Yes. Text messages, recorded conversations. All provided to law enforcement and submitted as evidence in the criminal trial. Carlisle's questions became more aggressive, trying to shake Amber's composure. But she'd been through therapy, processed the trauma. She was prepared. Finally, Gerald called a break. We stepped outside while the Bennetts conferred with their lawyer. You're doing great, Dr. Martinez told Amber. You're calm, credible, confident. That's what matters. When we returned, Jennifer Bennett looked at Amber with pure hatred. You destroyed my son's life. Mrs. Bennett, please, Carlisle said. No. She needs to hear this. Richard was a good man before her. She poisoned him somehow, made him into something he wasn't. Your son is a serial con artist with multiple victims, Gerald said coldly. He was that way long before he met Ms. Walker. Lies. All lies. You're protecting her because you're family. I'm stating facts proven in criminal court. Facts your son admitted to under oath when he took his plea deal. Thomas Bennett finally spoke, his voice weary. Jennifer, stop. This isn't helping. Helping? Our son is in prison because of her. Our son is in prison because he committed crimes. Multiple times. Against multiple women. We need to accept that. It was the first time anyone from Richard's family had acknowledged reality. Jennifer looked at her husband with betrayal, then stood up abruptly. I'm done here. This whole family deserves what they get. She walked out. Thomas stayed, looking at Amber with something like apology in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for what my son did to you. For what my wife is putting you through now. Mr. Bennett, you shouldn't be speaking to my client, Gerald said. I know, but she deserves an apology. We raised Richard better than this. I don't understand where we went wrong, but I know he hurt people. Hurt your daughter. I'm sorry. He left, leaving Carlisle alone with us. My clients wish to drop the lawsuit, Carlisle said stiffly. We'll file dismissal papers this afternoon. With prejudice? Gerald asked. Meaning they can't refile? Yes, with prejudice. And they'll cover your legal costs. No, Amber said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. We move forward with our countersuit. They need to understand that actions have consequences. Gerald smiled slightly. You heard my client. We'll see you in court. Carlisle gathered his things and left. Once he was gone, Amber slumped in her chair, the adrenaline wearing off. Did I really just say that? You did. And you were magnificent, Patricia said. I don't actually want to sue them. I just wanted them to stop pretending Richard is some victim. You made your point. Carlisle will advise them to settle. They'll probably offer something reasonable to make this go away quietly. Good. Let them pay for trying to harass us. We left the law office feeling victorious. The Bennett's case had crumbled and we'd stood our ground. That evening Gerald called with news. The Bennetts had offered $50,000 to settle the countersuit and sign a non-disclosure agreement preventing them from speaking about Amber publicly. What do you think? Gerald asked. I think we take it, Amber said. I don't need revenge. I just needed them to acknowledge reality. Then I'll accept on your behalf. This will be over by end of next week. After hanging up, Amber looked at me thoughtfully. That $50,000 should go to the retreat center. Let something good come from all of this. Are you sure? That money is yours. I'm sure. Richard tried to destroy my life for money. I'm using that money to help rebuild other women's lives. It feels right. The settlement was finalized the following week. The Bennett family disappeared from our lives, hopefully to reflect on their son's actions and their own denial. With that chapter closed, we focused fully on the retreat center. Construction was moving quickly. The old barn was being transformed into beautiful, functional living space. The surrounding land was being landscaped for peace and privacy. Local domestic violence organizations were thrilled about the project. They'd already identified women who would benefit from the program once it opened. Amber threw herself into planning. She researched therapeutic programs, interviewed counselors, developed curriculum for life skills classes. This project had become her passion, her purpose. About 6 weeks after the deposition, Sharon Kim called with unexpected news. We found another victim. Woman named Rebecca Martinez lives in Portland now. She was engaged to Richard 5 years ago before Sophie. Similar pattern: isolation, manipulation, financial targeting. How did you find her? Credit card records from Richard's old accounts. He'd made purchases in Portland during a specific time period, so I started reaching out to people in that area who might have known him. Rebecca responded. Is she willing to talk? She's willing to do more than talk. She wants to file charges. The statute of limitations hasn't run out on some of what he did to her. Can they reopen the case? They can file new charges. It wouldn't affect his current sentence, but it would add to his record, potentially extend his prison time. Does Amber need to be involved? No. This is Rebecca's case. But it validates everything we found. Richard's been doing this for at least 5 years that we can document. The news was sobering. 5 years, multiple victims, countless lives damaged. Amber had been just one target in a long line of women Richard had hurt. When I told Amber about Rebecca, she insisted on calling her. They spoke for over an hour, 2 survivors connecting over their shared experiences. She thought she was the only one, Amber told me afterward. She blamed herself for years, thought she'd been stupid to trust him. Hearing that it wasn't her fault that he'd done this to others, it helped her. Maybe we should start a support group. For women who've experienced this kind of targeted manipulation. That's a great idea. We could make it part of the retreat center program. The retreat center was scheduled to open in September, just 5 months after the canceled wedding. The transformation was remarkable. The barn was now a warm, welcoming space with 6 small apartments, each with a kitchenette and bathroom. The communal areas had comfortable furniture, artwork from local artists, plants everywhere. We'd hired staff, 2 full-time counselors, a job placement specialist, a part-time nurse, and a house manager who would live on site. Tasha had signed on as the activities coordinator, planning therapeutic programs and social events. The grand opening was scheduled for the second weekend of September. We'd invited representatives from every domestic violence organization in the state, local media, community leaders. The night before the opening, Amber and I walked through the finished space. Everything was ready. The apartments were furnished, the kitchen stocked, the offices equipped. All we needed were the women who would call this place home temporarily while rebuilding their lives. I can't believe we did this, Amber said, standing in the middle of the main community room. 5 months ago, I was about to marry a man who wanted to destroy everything I loved. Now I'm opening a place that will help other women escape men like him. You did this. This was your vision, your determination. We did it together. I couldn't have survived without you, without Patricia, without everyone who supported me. The opening ceremony the next day was beautiful. Local media covered it positively. Speakers from various organizations praised the facility and the program. Several women who'd be residents attended, looking hopeful and nervous. But the most moving moment came when Amber gave her speech. She stood at a podium in the barn's new community room, looking out at the gathered crowd. 6 months ago, I was in the darkest place of my life. I was about to marry a man who'd manipulated me, isolated me, planned to defraud my family. I felt trapped and helpless. But I found the courage to ask for help, and my mother gave me the strength to walk away. This place exists because I learned that survivors need support, need space to heal, need people who believe them. Second Chances Ranch is dedicated to providing that support. To giving women the time and resources to rebuild their lives on their own terms. If you're here today looking for help, know that you're not alone. Know that what happened to you wasn't your fault. And know that you deserve a second chance to create the life you want. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. After the speech, women approached Amber to share their own stories, to thank her for creating this space. We admitted our first residents that afternoon. 6 women, ranging in age from 23 to 51. Each with her own story of survival, each looking for a fresh start. That evening, after everyone had left, I found Amber sitting on the porch of the main ranch house, looking out at the retreat center in the distance. How does it feel? Surreal. Good. Scary. I keep thinking about all the ways it could go wrong. It won't. You've planned carefully, hired good people, built something solid. I hope so. These women are trusting us to help them. I don't want to let them down. You won't. You understand what they're going through because you lived it. That makes you exactly the right person to lead this. She leaned against me, and we sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the ranch. The same ranch Richard had tried to steal. The same land that was now sanctuary for women escaping men like him. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about transformation. Taking something meant for harm and turning it into healing. We'd done exactly that. The retreat center's first month exceeded all expectations. The 6 initial residents were thriving, attending counseling sessions, participating in job training, slowly rebuilding their confidence. Amber spent most of her time there now, getting to know each woman, understanding their needs. She'd found her calling in this work, and it showed in everything she did. One of the residents, a woman named Crystal, had a background in accounting. She'd been controlled financially by her ex-husband for years, but she was brilliant with numbers. Amber hired her to help manage the retreat's finances and books. She needs to rebuild her professional confidence, Amber explained. And we need someone trustworthy handling money. It's perfect. Another resident, Lydia, was a chef who'd given up her career when her partner demanded she stay home. Now she was running the retreat center's communal kitchen, teaching cooking classes, finding joy in feeding people again. Everyone here has skills, talents, dreams, Amber told me. They just need support to rediscover them. Patricia had moved back to her own life but visited every weekend, always bringing supplies or ideas for new programs. She'd become the unofficial board chair, managing fundraising and community relations. In October, we received news that Rebecca Martinez's case against Richard had resulted in additional charges. His sentence was extended by 3 years, meaning he'd serve at least 7 years before parole eligibility. Justice feels good, Amber said when she heard. But also sad. 7 years of prison won't teach him empathy or change who he is. Maybe not. But it keeps him from hurting anyone else for 7 years. That matters. Nicole Brennan had become a regular volunteer at the retreat center, teaching art classes and leading creative therapy sessions. She and Amber had formed a close friendship, bonded by their shared experience. Sophie Crawford visited from California in November, attending a fundraising gala we held for the retreat center. She donated $100,000 and connected us with other wealthy donors interested in the cause. "Your daughter is remarkable," Sophie told me at the gala. "She took the worst experience of her life and used it to help others. That takes incredible strength." "She learned from the best," I replied, meaning all of us who'd supported her, but Sophie smiled like she knew I meant Amber herself. The gala raised over $300,000, enough to expand the retreat center's capacity and add new programs. We were already planning a second building to house more residents. During this time, Amber reconnected with other aspects of her life she'd lost while with Richard. She joined a local swimming club, remembering how much she'd loved competitive swimming in high school. She started taking business management courses online, wanting to run the retreat center more effectively. One evening in late November, she came home from the retreat center looking thoughtful. "One of the residents asked me today if I hated men now. If I'd ever trust anyone again romantically. What did you tell her?" I said, "I don't hate men. I hate what Richard did, what her ex did, what all our exes did. But I'm not going to let them take away my ability to trust good people. That would mean they still have power over me. That's a healthy perspective." I also told her I'm not in any hurry. That I'm focusing on myself, on healing, on building this retreat center. Romance can wait until I'm ready. Sounds wise. But I did start wondering. Will I ever be ready? Will I ever be able to trust someone completely again? You will. It takes time, but you will. The fact that you're even thinking about it is progress. She nodded, though I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. Trust, once broken so thoroughly, takes years to rebuild. But she was young. She had time. December brought cold weather and the first residents graduating from the retreat center program. 3 women had completed their time, found jobs, secured housing, rebuilt relationships with family. We held a small ceremony celebrating their progress. Crystal, the former accountant, had gotten a position at a local firm. Lydia had been hired as a sous chef at an upscale restaurant. The third woman, Monica, had gone back to school to finish her nursing degree. "You saved my life," Monica told Amber at the ceremony. "I was ready to give up. But this place gave me space to remember who I was." "You saved yourself," Amber replied. "We just provided support." As the holiday season approached, we planned a special celebration at the retreat center. Nothing too elaborate, just a chance for residents, staff, volunteers, and supporters to gather and reflect on the year. The year had started with trauma and pain. It was ending with healing and purpose. That transformation was worth celebrating. On Christmas Eve, I found Amber in her old bedroom, looking at photos from throughout the year. Pictures from the canceled wedding day had been carefully filed away, but there were new photos now. Pictures of the retreat center construction, of the grand opening, of residents healing and thriving. "You know what's strange?" she said. "I'm grateful. For all of it. Even the bad parts." Grateful? If I'd married Richard, I'd have spent years trapped before escaping. Or maybe I never would have escaped. Instead, I got out early and found my purpose. The pain led me exactly where I needed to be. That's a beautiful way to look at it. It's the only way I can look at it without being bitter. I choose to believe everything happened for a reason. That reason is this retreat center, these women we're helping, this life I'm building. We sat together, looking at photos, talking about the future. The retreat center was just the beginning. Amber was already planning support groups for former residents, a scholarship fund for education, partnerships with local businesses for job placement. I want to write a book, she said suddenly. About my experience, about the retreat center, about how to recognize manipulation and get out safely. Maybe it could help people. That's a wonderful idea. I'm scared though. Writing it means reliving everything in detail. You don't have to do it yet. Give yourself more time to heal first. Yeah. Maybe in another year or two. The Christmas celebration at the retreat center was joyful and emotional. The women sang carols, shared meals, exchanged small gifts. Many were spending the holiday away from abusive situations for the first time in years. Tasha had organized a talent show where residents showcased skills they'd rediscovered. Someone played piano. Someone else read poetry. Lydia made an elaborate dessert display. Crystal did a comedy routine that had everyone laughing. Amber watched it all with pride and joy. This was her family now, these women finding their way back to themselves. As midnight approached, I stepped outside for air. The ranch was peaceful under a clear winter sky, stars brilliant overhead. The retreat center glowed with light and life in the distance. Patricia joined me on the porch, wrapping a blanket around herself against the cold. Hell of a year, she said. That's an understatement. You know what though? I look at Amber now and she's stronger than she ever was before. More focused, more confident. She knows exactly who she is and what she wants. Trauma can do that. Either break you or make you stronger. She chose to be stronger. That's what matters. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the retreat center lights, hearing faint music and laughter. What about you? Patricia asked. How are you doing with everything? Better. At the start of this, I blamed myself for not seeing the signs earlier. For not protecting her better. But I realize I gave her the most important thing. I trusted her enough to walk away when she asked for help. I stood up for her without hesitation. That's what she needed most. You did good, sis. You both did. Back inside the retreat center, Amber was dancing with some of the residents, all of them laughing, free. Looking at her now, you'd never guess the hell she'd been through 6 months earlier. That's the thing about survivors. They carry their scars, but they don't let those scars define them. They transform pain into purpose, trauma into strength. Amber had done exactly that. And in doing so, she created space for other women to do the same. The year ended with hope instead of heartbreak. With purpose instead of pain. With freedom instead of fear. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us to our greatest purposes. Amber's story proved that beautifully. January brought new challenges. The retreat center was at capacity with a waiting list of women needing help. Fundraising efforts were underway to expand. Everything seemed to be moving forward positively. Then Richard's prison letters started arriving. The first one came addressed to the retreat center, somehow delivered despite the restraining order. The security guard intercepted it and brought it directly to me. Inside was a handwritten letter from Richard. His neat accountant's handwriting filled 2 pages. Dear Amber, I've had a lot of time to think in here. About us, about what went wrong, about the future. I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But I want you to know I'm getting help. I'm in counseling, working through my issues. I'm becoming the man I should have been all along. When I get out, I'd like a chance to prove that to you. To show you I've changed. I still love you. I never stopped loving you. Someday I hope you'll forgive me. Yours always, Richard. I felt sick reading it. After everything he'd done, he was still trying to manipulate her. Still pretending he'd been motivated by love instead of greed. He's not supposed to contact us, Patricia said when I showed her the letter. The restraining order specifically prohibits this. Prison mail is hard to regulate. He probably claims he's just expressing his feelings. We need to document this and report it to his parole officer. Agreed. But we're not showing this to Amber. She doesn't need this poison in her head. Patricia hesitated. She's an adult. She should know. You're right. But let me think about how to tell her. That decision was taken out of my hands 2 days later when another letter arrived, this time directly to Amber at the ranch. She opened it before I could intercept it. I found her in the kitchen, the letter in her hands, her face pale. He wrote to me. He's claiming he still loves me, that he's changed. I know. He sent one to the retreat center too. I was trying to figure out how to tell you. He hasn't changed. People like him don't change. No, they don't. But they do try to manipulate from a distance. Why now? After months of silence, why start writing letters? Could be several reasons. Maybe he's up for some kind of review and wants to show he's remorseful. Maybe he's genuinely delusional enough to think you'd take him back. Or maybe he just wants to unsettle you, remind you he exists. It's working. I feel sick. We'll report this to the authorities. He's violating his restraining order. What can they do? He's already in prison. They can add to his record, potentially affect his parole eligibility, put him in stricter conditions. It's not nothing. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 more letters arrived. Each one progressively more unsettling. The third letter was angry. You ruined my life. I'm in here because of you. Because you couldn't understand what I was trying to build for us. The fourth was pleading. I've lost everything. My career, my freedom, my future. All I have left is the hope that someday you'll forgive me. The fifth was threatening. I have a lot of time to think about what I'll do when I get out. 7 years seems like forever, but it will pass. I'll remember everyone who put me here. After that one, I called Gerald immediately. This is escalating. He's moving from manipulation to threats. Forward everything to me. I'll contact the district attorney and the prison warden. This is serious. Can they do anything meaningful? They can put him in solitary, restrict his male privileges, add to his record. Whether that stops him is another question. Gerald moved quickly. Within days, Richard was moved to a different facility with stricter oversight. His male privileges were suspended. We were told he'd face disciplinary action within the prison system. But the damage was done. Amber was rattled, constantly looking over her shoulder, worrying about what would happen when Richard eventually got out. 7 years, Mom. That's not forever. He'll be out when I'm 33. Will I have to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder? We'll deal with it when the time comes. Right now he's contained. Focus on your life, your work, your healing. But Amber struggled to focus. She started having nightmares again, something that had finally stopped a few months earlier. Her therapist increased their session frequency. The residents at the retreat center noticed her distress. Crystal pulled me aside one day. Amber's not herself. Is she okay? She's dealing with some stuff. She'll be fine. If there's anything we can do to help, we want to. She's done so much for us. That evening, I found Amber in her room, staring at her laptop screen. What are you doing? Research. Reading about what happens when protective orders expire. About recidivism rates for fraud and manipulation crimes. About how long parole lasts. You're spiraling. This isn't healthy. I need to know what I'm facing. You're facing a future where Richard is locked up for years. Where you have time to build a life so strong and full that he becomes irrelevant. He'll never be irrelevant. He'll always be the man who tried to destroy me. Then he's also always going to be the man who failed. Who ended up in prison while you ended up running a successful retreat center helping dozens of women. Who has the better life now. She closed the laptop, some tension leaving her shoulders. You're right. I'm letting him win by being afraid. Exactly. The best revenge is living well. And you're doing that. The letters stopped after Richard's male privileges were suspended, but the psychological damage lingered. Amber was jumpy, anxious, checking locks obsessively. Then in late February, Patricia received a strange phone call. Someone called asking about the retreat center. Wanted detailed information about security, staffing schedules, what kind of screening we do for volunteers. That's odd. Very odd. I pretended we had very tight security and extensive background checks. Whoever it was hung up abruptly. Do you think it was Richard somehow? Calling from prison? I don't know. But the timing is suspicious. We increased security at both the ranch and the retreat center. Added cameras, changed access codes, briefed staff on what to watch for. 2 weeks later, a man showed up at the retreat center claiming to be a journalist interested in doing a story about the facility. Tasha, who was working the front desk, asked for identification and credentials. I don't have my press badge with me today, but I can come back tomorrow with it. That would be great. We'd love the publicity. But the man never returned. Tasha described him to us. Mid-30s, brown hair, average build. The description didn't match Richard, but it could match Scott Hendricks, Richard's former partner. Scott's still awaiting trial, Gerald informed us. He posted bail months ago. It's possible he's trying to intimidate you, gather information, something. Can we get his bail revoked? Not without proof he's threatening you. An inquiry about volunteering isn't a crime. So we just wait for him to actually do something? For now, yes. But document everything. Every weird call, every suspicious visitor, every odd occurrence. The atmosphere at the retreat center became tense. Residents noticed the increased security, the worried conversations between staff. Several asked what was going on. Amber decided honesty was best. She called a house meeting and explained the situation without going into extensive detail. The man who hurt me is in prison, but he's been trying to make contact. We've increased security as a precaution. Everyone here is safe. This facility is safe. But we want you all to be aware and report anything unusual. The residents rallied around Amber. They'd all experienced threats and intimidation from their own abusers. They understood fear and the importance of safety. We've got your back, Crystal said. Just like you've got ours. The show of support helped Amber regain some of her confidence. She threw herself back into work, channeling anxiety into productivity. In March, we hosted a fundraising event at the retreat center. Over 100 people attended, touring the facility, meeting residents, learning about the program. We raised $150,000 in a single evening. During the event, Patricia noticed a man in the parking lot who seemed to be watching rather than attending. Security approached him and he drove away quickly. Get the license plate? I asked. Already did. Running it now. The plate came back registered to a rental car company. Dead end. He's playing games, Gerald said when I told him. Showing up just enough to make you nervous but not doing anything actionable. How do we make it stop? You live your lives. You don't let fear win. That's what men like Richard and Scott want, to control you even from a distance. He was right. We couldn't let threats, real or implied, derail everything we'd built. Amber came to the same conclusion. One evening in late March she sat me down. I've been letting fear control me again. Just like when I was with Richard. I'm not doing that anymore. What changed your mind? I was talking to one of the residents. She said she spent years afraid of her ex finding her. Then one day she realized he already controlled too much of her life. She wasn't going to give him her future too. It resonated with me. So what's your plan? I'm going to keep building Second Chances Ranch. I'm going to help more women. I'm going to live my life fully and well. And if Richard or Scott or anyone else tries to interfere, we'll deal with it then. But I'm done being afraid of maybes. I hugged her tight, so proud of the strength she'd found. The threats and strange occurrences continued sporadically over the next few weeks, but we didn't let them stop us. We expanded the retreat center, added new programs, helped more women. In April, Scott Hendricks went to trial. The evidence against him was substantial, his partnership with Richard well documented. He was convicted on conspiracy to commit fraud charges and sentenced to 4 years in prison. With both Richard and Scott locked up, the strange phone calls and suspicious visitors stopped. The tension that had gripped us for months finally eased. Maybe it really was Scott trying to intimidate us, Patricia suggested. Or maybe Richard gave up when he realized we weren't backing down. Either way, we'd weathered another storm. And like every challenge before, we'd come through stronger. Spring brought renewal in every sense. The ranch bloomed with wildflowers, the retreat center buzzed with activity, and Amber was back to her confident self. We broke ground on the expansion in May. The new building would house 8 more residents plus office space for additional counselors and job training programs. Construction moved quickly through the summer. Local contractors donated labor, materials came in at cost, volunteers helped with landscaping. The community had truly embraced Second Chances Ranch. Amber had become something of a local celebrity. Newspapers ran features about her story in the retreat center. She was invited to speak at conferences about domestic violence prevention and recovery. She even testified before the state legislature about the need for more funding for long-term housing for abuse survivors. I never wanted to be public about this, she told me after a particularly draining speaking engagement. But if my story helps even one person recognize the signs of manipulation and get out early, it's worth the discomfort. The retreat center's success rate was remarkable. Over 80% of women who completed the program maintained stable housing and employment after leaving. Many stayed connected to the community, volunteering or participating in support groups. Crystal, the former accountant, had been promoted at her firm and was now sponsoring new residents financially. Lydia, the chef, had opened her own catering business and regularly provided meals for retreat center events. In July, Nicole Brennan moved to town permanently. She'd fallen in love with the work at the retreat center and wanted to be more involved. She rented a small house nearby and took on the role of creative therapy director. I spent years trying to forget what Richard did to me, she told Amber. But you showed me another way. Transform the pain, use it to help others. That's powerful. The two of them became inseparable, planning programs, supporting residents, healing together. Their friendship was beautiful to witness. Sophie Crawford visited again in August, this time with her new partner, a kind woman named Rachel. They'd met at a support group for fraud victims and had been together for 6 months. I wasn't sure I'd ever trust anyone again, Sophie confided. But Rachel is patient. She understands the trauma. We're taking it slow, but it feels right. Amber watched Sophie with her partner, and I saw something shift in her expression. Hope, maybe. The possibility that romantic trust could be rebuilt. In September, the first anniversary of the retreat center, we hosted a major celebration. Over 300 people attended. Former residents came back to share their progress. Donors and supporters celebrated the program's success. Local officials praised the initiative. Amber gave a speech that brought everyone to tears. A year ago, this place opened with a mission: to provide second chances to women rebuilding their lives after abuse. We've served 42 women in this first year. But I'm the one who's been given a second chance. When I walked away from that altar, I thought my life was ending. I thought I'd failed, made a terrible mistake, lost my future. But I was wrong. That day was the beginning of everything. The beginning of understanding my own strength. The beginning of finding my purpose. The beginning of this incredible community we've built together. Second Chances Ranch exists because I was given a second chance. And now we pass that gift forward, one woman at a time, creating ripples of healing that extend far beyond these walls. The crowd erupted in applause. I watched my daughter, poised and powerful, and marveled at her transformation. The scared young woman from the wedding was gone, replaced by this confident leader. After the celebration, as we cleaned up, Tasha approached me. I need to tell you something. About Amber. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But there's this guy who's been coming to some of our community events. He volunteers with Habitat for Humanity, which partners with us for housing placement. His name is Cameron. Okay. He's been asking about Amber. Subtle questions, but I can tell he's interested. And I've seen the way she looks at him when she thinks no one's watching. She's interested too. Has he asked her out? I don't think he wants to overstep. He knows her story, knows what she's been through. He's being respectful, keeping his distance. But I think if she gave any sign of interest, he'd ask. Do you think it's too soon? I think that's for Amber to decide. But she seems ready. Or at least curious. I thought you should know. I observed more carefully after that. Sure enough, at the next community event, I noticed Cameron. He was African American, around Amber's age, with a warm smile and gentle demeanor. He helped set up tables, chatted easily with residents, clearly comfortable in the space. And when Amber was nearby, I saw what Tasha meant. The way his eyes followed her. The way she unconsciously stood a little straighter when talking to him. The careful distance they maintained, like both were aware of an attraction neither wanted to acknowledge yet. After the event, as Cameron was leaving, Amber walked him to his car. They talked for a few minutes, then both laughed at something. It was the first time I'd seen Amber laugh like that with a man since before Richard. She came back inside glowing slightly. Cameron's nice, I said casually. He is. He's been volunteering for months. Really committed to the work. Just the work. She shot me a look. Don't start, Mum. I'm not starting anything. Just making an observation. Well, observe silently. But she was smiling. And over the next few weeks, I noticed Amber making more effort on days when Cameron would be volunteering. She'd wear her favorite jeans, do her hair nice, put on the necklace Patricia had given her for Christmas. Finally, in October, Cameron asked her to coffee. Nothing fancy, just a casual meeting to talk about potential collaboration between Habitat and the retreat center. It's not a date, Amber insisted. It's a professional meeting. Sure it is, Patricia said, grinning. But when Amber left for that coffee meeting, she was nervous in a way that had nothing to do with business. She came home 3 hours later, energized and happy. How was your professional meeting? It was good. Really productive. We're going to set up a formal partnership for housing placements. And what? Amber. She laughed. Okay, fine. We also just talked. About life, about our families, about goals and dreams. He's easy to talk to. It felt natural. Are you going to see him again? He asked if I wanted to go to a concert next weekend. I said yes. That's wonderful, sweetheart. It's terrifying. I haven't been on a real date in over 2 years. What if I've forgotten how? You'll remember? Just be yourself. The night of the concert, Amber was a bundle of nerves getting ready. She changed outfits 3 times, settled on jeans and a red blouse that looked beautiful on her. Cameron picked her up at 7, bringing flowers for both Amber and me. He shook my hand respectfully, promised to have Amber home at a reasonable hour, and generally behaved like someone raised with good manners. "He seems lovely," Patricia said after they left. "He does. But I'm trying not to get too excited. She needs to take this at her own pace." "She will. But it's nice to see her willing to try again." Amber came home around midnight, glowing. The concert had been great. Cameron was funny and kind. They talked for hours after at a diner. She felt comfortable with him. I told him about Richard. Not everything but the basics. I wanted him to understand why I might be cautious. How did he respond? He said he appreciated me sharing that and there was no rush. That we could take things as slowly as I needed. Over the next few months, Amber and Cameron dated casually. Coffee, movies, volunteer work together. Nothing too intense, just getting to know each other. Amber was clearly happy but also careful, maintaining boundaries, making sure she didn't lose herself the way she had with Richard. "I'm doing it differently this time," she explained. "I'm keeping my friends, my work, my independence. If he's the right person, he'll respect that. If he's not, I'll know early and can walk away." Cameron did respect it. He encouraged her work with the retreat center, never asked her to change plans for him, welcomed her friends when she brought them along. He was the opposite of Richard in every way. By December they were officially together. Nothing had been formally declared, but they were clearly a couple. And Amber was genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen since before her father died. At Christmas, Cameron joined us for dinner at the ranch. He brought thoughtful gifts, helped with cooking, fit seamlessly into our family dynamic. Even Patricia, who'd been skeptical of Amber dating again, warmed to him. "He's good for her," Patricia admitted. "Patient, kind, supportive without being controlling." "I agree. But I'm trying not to get too attached in case it doesn't work out." "It'll work out. Look at them." Amber and Cameron were in the kitchen doing dishes, laughing about something, completely at ease with each other. The contrast to how she'd been with Richard was stark. That night, after Cameron left, Amber sat with me on the couch. "I like him, Mum. Really like him. I can tell. But I'm scared. What if I'm wrong again? What if I'm missing red flags?" "You're not. Cameron is nothing like Richard. He doesn't isolate you, doesn't control you, doesn't manipulate you. He respects your independence and supports your work. Those are all green flags. I guess I just don't trust my judgment anymore." "Then trust mine. And Patricia's. And Tasha's. And Dr. Martinez's. We all see what you see. Cameron is one of the good ones." She nodded, some tension leaving her shoulders. "It feels different this time. Healthier. Like I'm choosing him from a place of strength instead of need. That's exactly how it should be." As the year ended, I reflected on how far we'd all come. 2 years earlier, Amber had been standing at an altar, terrified, passing me a note begging for help. Now she was running a successful retreat center, helping dozens of women, and building a healthy relationship with someone who truly cared about her. The ranch that Richard had tried to steal was thriving. The family he tried to destroy was stronger than ever. And the woman he tried to control was free, powerful, and happy. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well. And we were doing exactly that. Spring arrived again, marking 2 years since the cancelled wedding. The anniversary passed quietly, acknowledged but not dwelled upon. We'd all moved so far beyond that day. The retreat center was thriving. The expansion was complete and fully occupied. We'd helped over 80 women in 2 years with remarkably low recidivism rates. National organizations were reaching out, asking about replicating our model in other states. Amber had become a recognized expert in trauma-informed care for abuse survivors. She'd written several articles for professional journals and was working on the book she'd mentioned years earlier. This time she felt ready to tell her story. Cameron had become part of our family. He and Amber had moved in together in a small house near the ranch, though Amber still spent most days at the retreat center. Their relationship was solid, built on trust and mutual respect. In April, we learned that Richard was up for early parole review. He'd served 2.5 years of his 7-year sentence and was claiming rehabilitation. Gerald prepared our opposition statement, but we were told the chances of parole being granted were slim. "He's had multiple disciplinary issues in prison," Gerald explained, "including trying to run financial scams on other inmates. The parole board will see that." Still, the review process was stressful. Amber had to write a victim impact statement. Nicole and Sophie did the same. Rebecca Martinez, the victim from Portland, flew in to testify in person. The parole hearing was held on a gray Tuesday morning. Amber, Cameron, Patricia, and I sat in a sterile hearing room waiting. Richard was brought in wearing prison orange, looking older and harder than I remembered. He didn't look at any of us. The parole board reviewed his record, heard testimony from prison staff, read victim statements. Then Richard was given a chance to speak. "I take full responsibility for my actions," he said in a flat voice. "I hurt people. I manipulated and lied. I was wrong. Prison has given me time to reflect and change. I've completed counseling programs and education courses. I'm ready to rejoin society as a productive citizen." It sounded rehearsed, empty. The parole board members seemed unimpressed. Then Amber was asked if she wanted to speak. She stood up, walked to the front, and looked Richard directly in the eyes for the first time in 2 years. "2.5 years ago I almost married you. I thought I loved you. I thought you loved me. But you didn't love me. You loved what you thought I could give you. Access to property, money, control. I was never a person to you. Just a means to an end. You targeted me specifically because my father had died and you knew I was vulnerable. You isolated me from friends and family. You monitored everything I did. You planned, in writing, how to defraud my family. You placed cameras in my home to spy on me. Those aren't mistakes. Those aren't crimes of opportunity. Those are the calculated actions of a predator. You've served 2.5 years. That's less than half your sentence. You've had disciplinary problems in prison, which tells me you haven't actually changed. You're still trying to manipulate and con people. The only difference is your current victims are inmates instead of wealthy women. I don't believe you're rehabilitated. I don't believe you've changed. I believe you're telling this board whatever you think they want to hear, just like you told me whatever you thought I wanted to hear. But here's what I want you to know. You failed. You tried to destroy me and my family and you failed. I'm happy now. I'm successful. I've helped dozens of other women escape men like you. I've turned the worst experience of my life into something meaningful and good. You have no power over me anymore. None. So whether you're granted parole or not, whether you serve the full sentence or not, it doesn't matter to me personally. You're irrelevant to my life. But for the safety of other potential victims, I hope you're denied. Because predators don't change. They just look for new prey." She walked back to her seat. Richard's expression had gone from blank to angry, his jaw tight. That mask of remorse had slipped, revealing the real person underneath. The parole board deliberated for less than 20 minutes. Parole denied. Richard would serve at least another year before being eligible for review again. "Don't ever bring this man before us again without significant evidence of real change," the board chair said sternly. This was a waste of everyone's time. As Richard was led away, he glared at Amber with pure hatred. But she didn't flinch. Didn't look away. She stared right back until he was gone. Outside the building we all breathed easier. "You were amazing in there," Cameron said, pulling Amber into a hug. "I meant every word. He really doesn't matter to me anymore. Except as a cautionary tale for other women." We went to lunch together, all of us, celebrating not Richard's continued imprisonment but Amber's complete freedom from his psychological hold. That evening Amber and I sat on the ranch porch like we'd done countless times over the years. 2 years, she said. "It feels like a lifetime ago and yesterday all at once. You've come so far. We've come so far. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Without Patricia, without Tasha, without all the people who supported me. That's what family does. What community does. I want to do something special. For the 3rd anniversary of the wedding that didn't happen. Something that celebrates where we are now instead of dwelling on where we were." "What are you thinking?" "A big celebration at the retreat center. Invite everyone who's helped along the way. Current and former residents, volunteers, donors, supporters. Make it about community and healing and moving forward." "I love that idea." Over the next few months we planned the celebration. It grew into something bigger than we'd imagined. Almost 400 people confirmed attendance. We had to set up tents on the property to accommodate everyone. The event was scheduled for the first Saturday in August, 3 years and 3 months after that fateful wedding day. The weather cooperated perfectly. Clear skies, warm but not too hot, a light breeze. The retreat center and ranch grounds were decorated beautifully. Tasha had coordinated everything, creating spaces for food, music, speeches, and activities. People started arriving mid-morning. Former residents came with their children, their partners, their parents. Volunteers who'd helped with construction. Donors who'd funded programs. Local officials who'd supported the project. Nicole and Sophie flew in from California. Cameron helped me set up while Amber greeted guests. She was radiant in a flowing green dress, her hair in natural curls, completely in her element. Around noon we gathered everyone for speeches. Patricia went first, talking about the retreat center's impact and future plans. Several former residents spoke about their experiences and recovery. Local officials praised the program. Then it was Amber's turn. She stood before the crowd, microphone in hand, looking out at all these people who'd become part of her journey. 3 years ago, I made a decision that changed my life. I walked away from a wedding, from a man who was manipulating me, from a future that would have destroyed me. It was the scariest moment of my life. But it was also the beginning of everything good that followed. I couldn't have known then where that decision would lead. That I'd end up here, running a retreat center, helping other women find their strength. That I'd find my purpose in the worst experience of my life. That I'd meet incredible people who would become family. This place exists because I was given a second chance. Because my mother stood up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself. Because my aunt invested not just money but time and energy. Because volunteers believed in this mission. Because donors funded our dreams. Because former residents proved that healing is possible. We've helped over 100 women in 3 years. But we've done more than provide housing and counseling. We've built a community. A network of survivors and supporters who lift each other up, who refuse to let trauma define them, who choose strength over fear. Today isn't about celebrating 3 years since a wedding that didn't happen. It's about celebrating 3 years of growth, healing, purpose, and community. It's about honoring everyone who's been part of this journey. It's about looking forward to all the women we'll help in years to come. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for believing in second chances. Thank you for being part of this incredible family we've built. The applause was thunderous. People were crying, hugging, celebrating. I watched Amber work the crowd afterward, stopping to talk with everyone, making each person feel valued and appreciated. Cameron came up beside me. She's remarkable, your daughter? She is. You're pretty remarkable too, you know. For being patient with her, for supporting her through all of this. I love her. It's not hard to be patient when you love someone. You're planning to propose, aren't you? He looked startled. How did you know? Mother's intuition. Plus I saw you talking to Patricia about rings last week. Is it too soon? I don't want to rush her or trigger bad memories. I think it's exactly the right time. She's healed. She's strong. She knows what she wants. And she wants you. I hope you're right. Trust me. But maybe do it somewhere private, not at a big public event. He laughed. Definitely not. I was thinking on a regular evening at home, nothing fancy. Just us. Perfect. 2 weeks later, Cameron proposed to Amber in their living room. He'd made dinner, nothing elaborate, and halfway through the meal he'd simply told her he loved her and wanted to spend his life with her, if she wanted that too. She said yes. Not because she needed him, but because she wanted him. The difference was everything. They planned a small wedding for the following spring. Family only, maybe 30 people total. Outdoors at the ranch, simple and intimate. The complete opposite of the elaborate production she'd almost gone through with Richard. I want it to be about us, she explained. About our commitment to each other. Not about impressing anyone or putting on a show. The wedding took place on a perfect April afternoon. Amber wore a simple blue dress, carried wildflowers from the ranch. Cameron wore a nice suit, not a tuxedo. I officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. Patricia stood as Amber's witness. Cameron's brother stood as his. Tasha, Nicole, and Sophie sat in the front row. A handful of relatives and close friends filled the other chairs. We gathered in the pasture where I'd taught Amber to ride horses as a child. The same land Richard had tried to steal. The same land that had become sanctuary for so many women. We're gathered here today, I began, to witness Amber and Cameron commit to a partnership built on love, trust, and mutual respect. This is what marriage should be, two whole people choosing to share their lives. Amber and Cameron had written their own vows. They spoke them to each other with tears streaming down both their faces. I promise to respect your independence and support your dreams, Cameron said. To be your partner, not your keeper. To love you for who you are, not for what you can give me. I promise to trust you with my whole heart, Amber said. To share my life without losing myself. To build with you while remaining me. To choose you every day not because I need you but because I want you. They exchanged simple silver bands. I pronounced them married. Everyone cheered. The reception was casual and joyful. We barbecued on the ranch, played music, danced under string lights. It was everything a wedding should be and nothing like that terrible day 3 years earlier. As the sun set, Amber found me standing at the edge of the celebration, watching everyone dance and laugh. Thank you, Mom. For everything. For saving me. For believing in me. For helping me build this beautiful life. You saved yourself, sweetheart. I just stood up when you asked for help. Still, I wouldn't be here without you. We hugged tight, both of us crying happy tears this time. Cameron came over, extending his hand to Amber. May I have this dance, wife? Always, husband. I watched them dance, their movements easy and natural, their faces showing pure joy. Patricia joined me, slipping her arm through mine. We did good, sis. We did. Think she'll ever write that book? I think she already is. This whole thing, the retreat center, helping all those women, today. It's her story. She's living it and writing it at the same time. Poetic. True though. As night fell and stars appeared, the celebration continued. Music and laughter filled the air. The retreat center glowed with lights in the distance, housing women who were rebuilding their lives just like Amber had. This was what victory looked like. Not destroying the person who hurt you, but building something beautiful from the ashes of that pain. Not revenge, but transformation. Richard was still in prison, would be for years. But he'd become irrelevant. A cautionary tale, nothing more. His attempt to take everything from us had failed completely. Instead, he'd inadvertently given Amber exactly what she needed. The strength to walk away, the purpose to help others, the wisdom to recognize real love when it appeared. The ranch that was supposed to be his prize had become a sanctuary. The woman he'd tried to control had become a leader. The family he'd tried to destroy had grown stronger. And on this perfect evening, surrounded by people we loved, celebrating a marriage built on truth and respect and real love, we could finally say we'd moved beyond that terrible day 3 years ago. We'd done more than survive. We'd thrived. And we'd helped countless others do the same. That was the best revenge possible. And it was enough.